mini. So
nice Iron Sheik.
Yeah, so got that when I was in Delaware a couple weeks ago. So.
Nice. And as you can see, I'm wearing my Mega Powers t-shirt.
Nice.
In honor of this event here.
Well, I got the Sheik here, but I'm wearing a t-shirt that actually says "Beat Carolina." So
okay, it's not bad. I mean, it's a good shirt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a good message. It's a good message for all the kids out there.
It is a good shirt. They've been gone from any relevant tournament for quite a while.
We've been playing basketball for a while. I can't remember.
Yeah, I know. Well, they got bounced from the baseball tournament too.
Yeah, true. So
NC State knocked them out, and then they got knocked out by something else.
Well, State's gonna state, man.
I know that's the truth. Like, how much more true can that be? Like, you get right there to the end, and it's like, nope, something else has got to happen here.
No, that's the best funny thing about reading from the State fan perspective. They're just like, this is not shocking to us. They're not. It's the weirdest dynamic. Most fan bases be like, I can't believe this is happening. State, another day at the office, guys.
I know. Yeah, I tried to watch the first game.
Factor desks into their engineering school.
I tried to watch the Vanderbilt game, and then I watched the 7th inning where they left the bases loaded and couldn't score anything, and then the 8th inning they left 2 on with 1 out and couldn't score. And I was like, okay, I'm finished with this. I can't subject myself to this. And then I wake up the next morning and they're like, well, they're out of the tournament. What?
Well, Vandy's good. They gave my Pirates a hell of a 2-game series. They had 2 starters that are basically studs. You're going to be top 10 picks in the draft.
Yeah, and I'm not saying they're a bad team or whatever, but we pretty much took them to the limit. They're shorthanded.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Then okay, well, we're just going to cancel it. What?
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah, it's State's going to state. So.
Yeah, I know. Of course, that's how it went. Yeah, man, come on.
So unexpected turnarounds, unexpected series of events. I think that kind of covers what we're here to talk about today.
It does. Yeah, it does.
Want to get that little segue in there.
So. I know. What are we here to cover today?
I think we're here to talk about maybe the most significant in-ring wrestling moment in the last 25, 30 years.
Well, it's exactly 25 years ago. So, yeah.
So there we go. So.
It's something I didn't realize until I saw it come up on Instagram yesterday, or not yesterday, but a couple days ago. We're almost 25 years to the day from the 316 promo too.
Yeah.
Which I knew it was summer of 96, but I didn't realize it was right now. I think, let me look it up. I got my other computer here. I think it was the 23rd. WWE of the Ring 96.
That would have been June of some kind.
Yeah, June 23rd.
Okay. So 5 days.
This is the 28th. We're recording this. So yes, that's crazy to think about, because then obviously we're going to talk about the NWO, Hogan's turn at Bash of the Beach. But from the 23rd to the 9th of July, that's right on it. You've got 2 of the biggest events in, actually, no, maybe the 7th of July was Bash at the Beach.
And that's why I kind of wanted to, preface that with, there's, I think, one of the more important in-ring moments, because obviously Austin's promo, you could argue, might be one of the most important promos ever cut in the history of pro wrestling.
Oh yeah.
What it set off. But I think what's kind of cool is that you have two companies at this time having these both major events within weeks of each other.
Huge events.
Redefine the business. I mean, we're still dealing with this today. I mean,
and I think the thing is you knew the NWO thing was huge as soon as it happens. The Austin thing took a little while to really pick up. And then you realized, oh, okay, yeah, we got something really going on here. But that one actually took a little while for the Austin thing to come up.
And I think, the Austin promo, I think a lot of it was because it was something that was, for most fans, incredibly shocking in what happened. I mean, whoever did a promo like Austin 316 really before Steve Austin did it?
No, I mean, nobody.
I mean, it's one thing to taunt a beaten opponent, but the level he did it to,
yeah,
and like how inside, you could thump your Psalms, you can, get this guy some Thunderbird,
yeah, telling him to go get some Thunderbird to get his courage back.
Yeah, I mean, I've always felt, that would be, I've always wanted to like just get like a bottle of Thunderbird and make an ad that says "Get your courage back." But
you wonder how much more Thunderbirds sold after Austin, talked about it right there on national TV like that, because I don't think Thunderbird's been in such a national spotlight in quite a while.
Yeah, God, can you imagine you're watching that? Man, I'm thirsty. What are you gonna get? I want some Thunderbird. Whoever utters that statement, like,
no, I don't think anybody's.
I mean, usually Thunderbird is a drink of last resort. Like,
yes,
it's not your first draft pick. So,
it's like, hang on, wait a second. I only got $1.50 left I only got $1.50 in my wallet.
But I'm gonna have a good old time.
But I want to get lit.
Yeah, and depending on where you are, you might even be able to get part of a steel reserve too. So
maybe.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that was the thing with Austin. It was such a different promo. And it was I mean, that, and I think once again, going back to what the NWO is going to do and the buildup, and I've gone back and watched kind of some of those nitros where shows up, Nash shows up, and it's this dynamic that I think, WCW, I think, did a really good job of going right to the line and making you think, is this actually really an invasion?
Yeah. To the point that Vince was filing lawsuits.
Yeah. I mean, and I think even with the lawsuits, I think people were kind of like, I don't know, this is different. This is like, this isn't a work shoot. I mean, even the idea of Hall comes out of the audience.
Yeah.
Doesn't come down the aisle. You come down the aisle, he was already there. It literally looks like he's a guy that was sitting in the stands and decided to get in the ring and cut a promo.
Yeah, and I mean, you still though, I mean, looking back now, you're like, well, why wouldn't the security guards have gotten him?
Mm-hmm.
But because they got on that guy that came into the ring on Bret Hart pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and maybe if there was one thing they could have done better, maybe have Hall like punch a security dude.
Yeah, Doug Dillinger, have him knock out Doug Dillinger.
And then you get in the ring and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? And I think too, the idea that we knew who these guys were, but there were so many elements that, they had been in WCW before, but they weren't really major players. I mean, we're talking the Diamond Stud and Vinny Vegas, or Oz, if you are so inclined. These aren't going to be major moments where people are like, oh yeah, I remember that guy,
Yeah, but no, you are definitely remembering Razor Ramon and Diesel.
Yeah, and it's almost this idea, you held us back here. Now we're here in WCW after we made it big, and we're going to make you pay for it.
Yeah.
It's actually an interesting level, because then when they start promoting the idea of who's the third person, I don't think there's anybody else that could have been the third person with the impact other than Hogan. I don't think it would have worked well if it was Sting. Wouldn't have worked if it was Savage. It wouldn't have worked if it was Flair. I mean, whoever you get, it had to be Hogan.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm looking at the card for the Bash at the Beach, and it's an extensive card. It's got 14 matches on it, so I think we're going over much of the roster for WCW at the time, except for maybe the cruiserweights. So let's see. Jim Powers and Hugh Morris.
Let's sell out anywhere.
Wasn't going to be either one of those guys. The Steiners. Wasn't going to be them because they were more known as WCW guys.
Yeah.
Harlem Heat. They were only WCW.
Yeah.
Bobby Walker, I don't even know who he is.
Wasn't that Hard Work Bobby Walker? You know, whenever like the jobber gives him a name like Hard Work, you know he's probably gonna be losing.
It was Hard Work Bobby Walker.
Yeah.
Still don't know who he is.
Exactly. So it just shows you, kids, if you work hard, people may not know who you are.
Exactly. Beat Billy Kidman. The Rock and Roll Express defeated Scott Norton and Ice Train.
Oh, actually, those are two big hosses right there, though.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have messed with either Norton or Ice Train. Those were big dudes.
No. Obviously, Ricky Morton was not going to be the third man. He would not have fit in that dynamic.
Actually, I want to see that now. Yeah, the
Ricky Morton as the third man for the NWO. Eddie Guerrero and Steven Regal.
Both good hands. Obviously, Guerrero, a lot of good years still to come, but neither one of those guys could.
They were not the third man. Rey Mysterio and Psychosis.
Same thing.
Not taking anything away from those guys.
Nope.
I don't think either one of those would have had the promo that Hulk Hogan had.
And also, you needed Ray to be lawn darted into the production truck.
Yeah, what was that? I mean, that was, I don't remember how much later that was.
Still one of the greatest like spots ever. Like,
yeah. John Tenta and Big Bubba Rogers.
Yeah.
Earthquake was not going to be the third man. Diamond Dallas Page and Jim Duggan. No, I mean, obviously Page was not anything near that level. Duggan, you could argue, might have been close to that level 10 years before this, but not now.
Yeah. I mean, could you imagine? He's like, it's a new world order. Ho! No,
yeah, that wouldn't work.
You know,
just wouldn't work.
Uh,
The Nasty Boys defeated Public Enemy. No. Dean Malenko and Disco Inferno.
There you go.
I'm just laughing at the thought of Disco Inferno being the third guy.
Yeah.
Now, if this was 99 WCW, yeah, I think Disco actually would have been the perfect third man.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like something 99 WCW would have done.
Oh, yeah. Well, and even, I mean, think about 99 WCW, somebody like Page would have been awesome.
Yeah, that's true, too.
So over and was almost like the guy in WCW constantly fighting. I think that was always the interesting dynamic, even with Sting, when Sting goes away and develops like the Crow angle, you still had Page there like every day fighting the NWO, sometimes by himself.
Yeah.
And I always kind of felt like, in a way, like what Sting did was kind of heelish. Like, your company is being ravaged and you're just sitting there watching. And here you got this guy, Page, like on paper should be past his prime as a wrestler, now entering his prime.
Yeah.
And he's fighting these guys off.
I mean, Page was pretty much the only real big name that never joined the NWO, right?
Yeah. And
he ever joined them.
Have you ever, go back and watch when he finally puts on the NWO shirt, but then turned around, hits the diamond cutter on everybody. The pop that place had was huge.
Yeah.
So he could have maybe worked later, but right now in 96, not happening.
No. Steve Malenko of the Horsemen defeated Joe Gomez. I have no idea who Joe Gomez is, and this match is pretty high up the card.
Yeah, I think needless to say, we're not going to have Joe Gomez as the third guy.
No, and not Mongo either.
No.
Singles match for the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship. Ric Flair with Miss Elizabeth and Woman defeated Conan.
You maybe could have argued Flair, but I don't know if Flair would have worked in that environment. Like, because the NWO was always kind of gritty. Like, yeah. I don't think Flair, I mean, can you do a Flair promo with kind of that grittiness? Like, I don't know. No, it's hard to talk about limousines and jets when you're basically a gang taking over. It worked with the Horsemen, but the whole presentation of the Horsemen was different.
So I'm trying to think. How big of a star was Conan in Mexico?
At that point, he was still huge. I mean, that would have been actually, Conan's, I think, a guy that is underappreciated on the mic.
Yeah.
He cut good promos. Good in the ring. I think also had a believability to him.
Yeah.
But I think even then, though, I don't know how that would have translated to the American audience, because I think the wrestling audience was different in ¡96 than it is today.
That's true.
You're not having people seeking out these matches from AAA and things like that online. You had tape traders, but that was a small group.
Yeah. And I don't think Conan would have made a good third guy with Hall and Nash.
No.
Now, if you'd have had a different two, that could have been interesting, because I think Conan could have been the main guy, especially if you would have gone to, say, San Antonio rather than Daytona.
Right. Yeah.
That could have been pretty unique, but no, in this and Conan, obviously we're getting ahead here. I've always, if you asked me to name 4 people of the NWO, I mean, Conan to me is probably going to be number 4.
Yeah.
Because I think that period in, mid to late 97, to me, he was the 4th guy.
Yeah.
For the NWO.
Well, I think later with what he did with the Wolfpack and things like that, I think he's certainly he's a guy that actually made sense there.
Yeah.
A lot of the people in the NWO did not make sense. Like, after a while,
Virgil.
When you get Virgil, well, hey, somebody's got to make some meat sauce money.
Well, that's true, but
you know how much meat sauce he was buying on those NWO checks?
Hopefully a lot.
I mean, because I have to think, when the whole gang went out to Olive Garden after, spray painting people's backs, I think there was a run on some endless breadsticks and salad.
Yeah, maybe.
Eazy-E dropping out that meat sauce money for Virgil,
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? What if Virgil was the third guy?
I don't know what to say to that.
You know what? Fans all over the world, their minds are just, I think we're literally going to have people that are just going to stop functioning now.
Yeah,
that's that thing that just shuts your entire system down when you hear that.
I'm about to stop. I'm almost stopped functioning right now.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a hard one to think about. Virgil is the third man.
And I mean, what if instead of the New World Order, he called it the Meat Sauce Mafia or something like that? Can you imagine the NWO shirt, MSM, Meat Sauce Mafia? We're getting merch, man. It's going to get huge.
Yeah, we are. Hey, Virgil, if you see this, man, you owe us royalties for that Meat Sauce Mafia shirt.
Virgil, we'll pay you $35 if you make this shirt for us. Yes, Virgil, I offered $35.
You can get a lot of meat sauce and breadsticks for $35.
You might even be able to take a lady out that night too for that. Get one of those 2 for $20 deals, you know?
Yeah.
You even have a little bit left over for a cannoli later. You know?
Anyway, back to the Bash at the Beach card before we go completely off the rails. The Giant and the Taskmaster beat Arn Anderson and Chris Benoit.
I mean, the Giant, but he doesn't have. You had to have somebody that had that connection to WWF. It couldn't just be. I think that's why Sting or the Giant wouldn't have worked. I mean, the Giant was posing at that time. When you talk about 3 big dudes, you get Hall, Nash, and the Giant in the ring together. Those are some big guys.
Yeah.
Because I think we always forget how big Scott Hall was. Like, I think if he wasn't always around Nash as much, we would view Hall being bigger physically than we sometimes think he is.
Yeah.
You know, and even around Hogan. I mean, you know, this wasn't Hogan peak, but Hogan was still a pretty big dude.
Yeah.
And, you know, Hall's right up there with him physically.
Yeah. And then I mean that's the last match. The only other match on the card is the main event, and we know who's in that. Savage, looking at the card, and again, unless you want to say Conan for a Latino audience, but you know, like we were saying, that doesn't really work with Hall and Nash. I think Savage is probably the only other person who you could really think that, okay, this guy makes sense.
Yeah.
Because there were no other really big WWF stars there at the time.
Yeah, and I think, you know, with Savage, this would actually be kind of an interesting rabbit hole to go down. Imagine Savage is the third guy. You're going to have to incorporate Hogan somehow.
Yeah.
And you're going to almost have to keep Hogan as a face, but by this point, the Hogan face run was really over. I mean, the crowd was done with it. And that's even back in WWF, like 92, 93. Like, it's kind of run its course. So you could have had some interesting stuff with the real life dynamics with Hogan and Savage. You know, I've always been in shadow. I'm tired of it. I was always a better worker than you. I was always a better promo than you. I was, you know, on and on. But you always held me back.
Yeah.
You know, now you've got this sweet little gig here in Atlanta. Well, we're going to ruin that for you. But I don't know if the audience would have felt Hogan would have been sympathetic, because Hogan always wins. He always overcomes. There's no drama to that.
But, well, they could have, but they would have probably had to do something that Hogan wouldn't have wanted to do.
Right. Not going to do that, brother.
Oh, not going to do no jobs, brother. I mean, look, I just looked back because I knew it wasn't too far away. March 24th, 1996, uncensored, from Tupelo, Mississippi, where Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage beat the world.
Yeah.
I mean, look, just look at this name of guys they beat: Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Ming, Taku.
Yeah.
The Barbarian, Lex Luger, the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan, Z Gangsta. They brought back Zeus. And then the Ultimate Solution. A well-known wrestler, of course.
Well, and even that dynamic, you know, the only thing that would have been shocking is that they legitimately laid Hogan out. Like, not earthquake on your ribs. I'm talking like we're loading Hogan into an ambulance.
Yeah.
That bad.
Yeah, Hulk Hogan gets took out on a stretcher with his face busted open.
Yeah.
Like Eddie Guerrero against JBL.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking like he looks like, I think people are thinking we just watch an actual assault on television.
Yeah.
Like that's where it would have to be. But then you can take Hogan off. You could repackage that character. I mean, I think you could have Hogan come back slightly different if you didn't want the, traditional white meat babyface Hogan. You could have given him maybe a little more edge, but even then, you'd have to do a lot of booking around to even try to come close to the impact it had when Hogan dropped that leg.
Yeah.
I mean, the gasp in that audience when he goes up is audible. You can hear it. And everybody's like, oh my God, Hogan has just turned heel, which Hogan's been heel before, but your average wrestling fan didn't know that.
No, because I mean, at this point, that was 15 years.
Yeah. And very much regional. I mean,
that was,
it wasn't, I don't even know if then did AWA have the ESPN deal then.
No, I don't think they got that until much later.
Unless you were in the AWA territory, really.
Yeah.
You're not going to know that. Or you might have known Hogan as kind of a heel in Rocky, but he was playing
Thunderlips.
Thunderlips was fake, but interestingly enough, a lot of the Hollywood Hogan character, there's a lot of parallels of kind of Thunderlips.
There is a lot of Thunderlips.
If you want to see Hollywood Hogan before Hollywood Hogan, go look at Thunderlips. So
yeah. But no, that heel turn was just, nobody was expecting that, and that was not a bad promo that he did after that match either.
No, well, even the way the announcer sold it as Hogan comes down to the ring, everybody's like, yes, Hogan's gonna clear house. We're gonna take care of this. I mean, even Heenan, some of Heenan's best work in WCW was during this.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of Heenan's WCW work because I think in a lot of cases he was phoning it in.
Yeah.
And I would too if I was getting that check and feeling the way he was that time.
Yeah.
But I think, but then when he finally does it, Heenan does the, I knew it, or like Heenan's
15 years, 15 years, I've been telling you.
Yes, which I think was brilliant because it's like, holy crap, Heenan's been right the entire time.
Yeah.
And so, but I think it's like, and I think it made it, that was even another layer to that made it even more impactful, that you're like, wait a minute, for 15 years, this guy's been trying to destroy Hulkamania, and we thought he was the worst person ever for doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe he was the good guy in all this the whole time.
Yeah.
What Hogan did seemed that much phonier. Like it was perfect. Like it's the greatest heel turn ever in wrestling history.
And I think you think about it. I mean, I think Heenan in a lot of ways made that one too.
Yeah.
Because he was on the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
He was this guy that from the AWA to the WWF, I mean, all the way up to 92 when the thing with Flair.
Mm-hmm.
That was all we're going after Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And that was Heenan right at it. And now here's Bobby Heenan still on the mic.
Yeah.
In 1996, 13 or 14 years after they've been doing this thing. And, he's still going after Hogan. And now Bobby Heenan, in an unbelievable reversal, now gets to be the baby face.
Yeah.
In this whole package, just because he's still against Hulk Hogan.
Now, and I wonder which producer or writer fed those lines to Heenan.
Whose side is he on?
Yeah. I mean, that was Heenan probably being Heenan ad-libbing, because I've often wondered how much did they really know? Because I think if you let the announcers in, it might not be as big of a shock. Like,
no, I don't. I wonder if the announcers knew.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, because if I ever get in a room with Eric Bischoff, I'd like to ask him, how much do the announcers know? Like,
yeah, did they know?
I've heard interviews with him and things he said that at times he would purposely leave the announcers kind of in the dark to get that real reaction.
Yeah, I mean, So obviously I have not been a commentator at Bash at the Beach,
Mhm.
but whenever I did commentary at those shows in Greensboro, I didn't want to know who won the match.
Right. Yeah.
Like I had a format. I knew who was coming to the ring first. I knew the match that was on next and everything else. But no, I intentionally didn't write down who was winning. I mean, okay, some of the matches, yeah, you know who's winning. When a guy's coming to the ring that's been wrestling for 10 years and he's going against a guy that's in his third match, well, okay, yeah, we know who's winning that one. But you know, especially any match that meant anything, no, I didn't want to know who was.
Or even in that situation, the guy, it's his third match. If for some reason he goes over,
Oh yeah,
shocking when you're seeing it going, oh my God, this guy actually won.
yeah.
I mean, think about like the 1-2-3 Kid against Razor Ramon.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
That same kind of dynamic, even though that was not Sean Waltman's third match ever.
No, he had been doing it, but he was
that nobody expected him to win, and all of a sudden it happens like, whoa, so you have to have that. And I think we've really seen the last year with COVID the impact that the audience has on wrestling.
Yeah.
We could in many ways argue the audience is the most important character in wrestling.
Yeah.
And then obviously you take a hot audience with the right announcers. And then I think the fact that after he does it, you have Mean Gene come in the ring.
Yeah.
Like, who was symbolic of WWF interviews?
And sitting there,
good Hogan, it was Mean Gene.
And Okerlund being like, when he's like stuttering, trying to get the words out, like you're just like, whoa, what's going on here? I mean,
the only thing I would have maybe added, what if Hogan would have punched Okerlund in the face
and just grabbed the mic on his own?
Yeah, and then just mockingly, well, Mean Gene, let me tell you something when you wake up, and then cut on your, cut the promo.
Yeah, but that's true.
I mean, once again, like, how many major wrestling angles can you look at and you could clearly rebook it to be vastly better? There's very little you can do for this to make it better. Like, there's no, like, when you watch it, it holds up well today. It holds up on its own. It's perfect. Like, it really is. And I mean,
yeah, and I mean, you can get into what they did in the years to come, but no, for the first, few months of this, that I don't think they could do anything better or different.
And you've got that sweet Mega Power shirt on. That might be the closest to a perfect build to something for so long with the Mega Powers, with so many different layers. But eventually it wasn't a new story. This was totally new.
Yeah.
And I think it also, we forget, even though WCW is a national company at this point, they're still considered Southern wrestling.
Yeah.
And it's Southern wrestling fans. And one thing Southern wrestling fans hated was the WWF.
And so that's what you've got these three big WWF guys that are going at it. And then they start bringing in, I wish I could have a list of how they brought in.
Just say half
in what order.
And I mean, I think that's ultimately where it got off the rails, was when literally half the roster is on the NWO. I mean, IRS member of the NWO. Great Hand, wow. What was he then? Michael Street or, VK Wall Street or something like that. I mean, I don't even know what his name was, but, that doesn't have the same effect. And it was like they were getting anybody that had connections to WWF. Now they're bringing him in. To me, that wasn't as cool.
Yeah.
It would have, I think having it as a smaller group, and frankly, it then leads, you'd have to have the Horsemen to be the ones that end this. Who else would be the force that could take this on. It would have to be the Horseman. And I think you could still do the Mr. Perfect turn there.
Yeah.
That would have been a nice wrinkle, and then you could have brought somebody in. Eventually you needed to have the Horseman go over. You had to have that.
Yeah.
But I think you would have been, you would have been fine if you did that, because even if it's, say, after a year or two, they finally go over at Starrcade and all is well. I think about the 97 Sting Starrcade.
Yeah.
That final match is actually, they go over. The Horsemen go over here.
Yeah.
All has been restored. And then you can always have Hall and Nash as a tag team. You can always have Hall or Nash as a single star. Like, there was anything you could do that the NWO storyline ran too long.
Yeah.
And I think one thing wrestling fans always love is when we're given something really awesome and then it goes away and it comes back. Nostalgia pops are big.
Yeah.
So I think that's maybe like the long-term booking. It'd been interesting what like the WWF team could have done with the same scenario with some of the writers and folks that when you had Pat Patterson and people like that involved. I mean, I think it would have been interesting where it goes long-term. But and I think something too, the element when Hogan's in that ring, all the trash flying in the ring, that's something I miss from professional wrestling. Now, I'm not advocating it comes back, because somebody throws like a D-cell battery at somebody's head, that's going to hurt. Like, a beer can flying through, that's going to hurt. But it was such a cool moment where it's just trash pelting the ring. Like, that was cool.
All right. I do actually have a list of how they went with the members. Hogan, Hall, and Nash, obviously the first. Next one to come in is Ted DiBiase, bringing in the $1 Million Man. And then, for who knows what reason, the Giant comes in. I don't understand the reasoning for that. The fake NWO Sting. X-Pac, he's next. Virgil.
Now, even like with X-Pac, that wasn't bad. I mean, Waltman was a heck of a worker. He was a bumping machine. Like, you need that. I mean, you got to have somebody take the epic bumps while Hogan, Hall, and Nash get scurry out of the ring like chicken, heels.
Yeah.
So you needed that. You needed those guys to take those bumps. But, I kind of think about, like, even in the Horsemen, what Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard used to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to have those guys. But yeah, I mean, I think some of those guys, they make sense. Even Ted DiBiase, he's the money guy.
Yeah.
You think these guys are financed. Like, that works. Because, to do this, you got to have some money.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think certain of those guys work. Like, when you're getting Virgil, fake Sting, that was just stupid.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Carrying on down the list, Miss Elizabeth and Nick Patrick.
The heel ref, yeah.
And the heel valet. Eric Bischoff. Okay, now this is when we're starting to go off the rails.
Yeah.
When the commentator and the executive guy is now part of the thing. Buff Bagwell. Mike Wall Street, IRS. Big Bubba Rogers. And then Scott Norton.
Yeah, I mean, somebody like Norton doesn't make any sense. Like, and also Norton would have been a heck of a hoss to have fighting some of these guys. I mean, I think that's the thing where even a guy like Buff Bagwell, same thing. I mean, Buff at this point was basically like in his American Males gimmick before this with Scotty Riggs.
Yeah.
Worst theme song ever, but it would have been a way to turn a very silly, fluffy character into somebody with some legitimate noise and some legitimate storyline behind them. You know, some of these younger guys like, hey, we have an opportunity here. We're not going to let you guys ruin it for us. You know, and you could even have some tension with the Horsemen and these younger WCW guys. Yeah. But the idea of factions is ultimately to build stars. What major stars were turned out from this? Who were major stars created really outside of DDP?
And he was, on the other side of it.
Right. I mean, so imagine, you know, he got over fighting the NWO. What about guys like, you know, some of these guys that maybe weren't considered major players, but were almost like their own faction, if you're going to go with that gave an extra element, like they're feuding with none of the NWO. They might even feud with the Horsemen. Because, you know what, you guys might be trying to save WCW, but you're the same as these guys are. You know, Flair, you've always been holding people down. You guys have always tried to control things, you know? So once we get rid of this NWO nonsense, we're coming after you as well. You know, and that would have been the way to build it. And, but that's the thing. If you, for such a hot angle, the lack, I mean, the only thing you could say is that it did revitalize Hogan's career.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Hogan got basically almost 10 more years of runtime from that heel turn.
Yeah.
You know, so there we go. I mean, you know, and even we think going back to the WrestleMania match he has with Rock. I mean, if Hogan had stayed red and yellow brother, he's not wrestling the Rock at WrestleMania.
No.
Like that's just not happening.
No. I mean, just like the Austin match didn't happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think in the end, you look at it and it's a very successful angle. I mean, God, how many NWO shirts are still being sold today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I would love to see like what the top sellers for shirts are in WWF. And I bet a lot of it's still Austin 316 and NWO.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm sure it is.
And so, I mean, that's great. I mean, they're still making money on it, but that nobody was really ever spun off and became a huge star because of it, which is what you have to do.
Right. Yeah. No.
But you have to have somebody, you know, become a big star from this. And we really didn't have that. The people that were stars were still going to be stars when this was over. And long term, what WCW lacked was future stars, especially for somebody like Goldberg gets hot. Well, who's Goldberg going to feud with after the NWO?
Yeah, no, there was nobody else there. Well, Bret Hart, and we saw where that went.
Yeah, I mean, and but once again, that's bringing another established star in.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think you almost had to have. Yeah, that was, I think, the aftermath is really where it goes off the rails, like you said. But in this moment, in this little 24-hour period, that was big. And
it was huge.
I mean, this was also this was just the start of the internet era in wrestling. Because I remember, you know, I had America Online at the time. Yeah. And you would have like wrestling chat rooms and wrestling message boards. And you'd go in and you'd read them. And it wasn't like to the extent today with smart fans.
Yeah.
There was still an element of kayfabe there. But when this happened, I mean, I remember that night, it just blowing up like, oh my God, what is going on here? Is this real? Is this, you know, are they actually going to take over WCW?
Yeah.
This was, nothing had ever been blurred that much in the wrestling world outside like the territories. Nothing ever done at the national level like this. And
no, I mean, nothing that we had ever seen where they were bringing people in, because I mean, obviously, yeah, WWF brought in Ric Flair in 92, where they brought him out with the big gold belt and essentially acknowledged that somebody else was another champion, but they didn't try to form, you know, like a faction around him.
Flair didn't come in and form the Horsemen.
Yeah, and you know, take some other old WCW guys, which I don't know who would have been there in 92, because I don't think the Steiners were there when he came in, but you know.
Well, I guess there was that time period, and I've read, I guess this is around like 88, I want to say 88 or 89, when WWF had Arn and Tully as the Brainbusters.
Yeah.
There had been some talks about possibly Flair coming in, and they would form the Horsemen there. That could have been big money.
Yeah.
Because you would have still had Flair really at his peak. I mean, you're looking at 85 to 88 Flair. There's nobody better in wrestling history.
No.
I mean, work rate, promos. I mean, I've gone back and listened to like some of the Flair promos from 86. Every week, it's a awesome promo.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the ones everybody knows. Like every week, he was just,
yeah.
You know, and I mean, so yeah, that could have been huge. But I think by 92, I don't know how well that would have worked. You know, I mean, and also you wouldn't have had the ability to get Arn and Tully in there. You could have probably gotten Tully, but Arn was by 92. He's under contract with WCW. Yeah. And then who's the other guy? You know, I mean, do you bring in Wyndham? Do you bring in Luger? Do you bring in, you know, however you wanted to do it?
Yeah.
But I think it was, I mean, I like the idea of factions. I like the idea of factions running roughshod because it creates this dynamic of fighting back.
Yeah.
But you eventually have to have the Beast slayed.
Yeah, they have to lose, and that was maybe the biggest problem with the NWO is the NWO never lost. Yeah, Hogan would lose a match every now and then. The Outsiders would lose a match every now and then. But you never had this like big blow off where the faction lost. Because they tried to hype that up at War Games 96. That was where you had Sting and Luger, and I think it was Flair and Arn, wasn't it? Or maybe Flair, whoever. Obviously, they lost because Sting walked out and left him shorthanded. And then you go all the way to War Games 97. They still really haven't lost. And now you have the NWO in here and you have the Hennig turn, which, I mean, I guess was good business. And slamming Flair's head in the door was good. But at the same time, like by now, I mean, we're a year and a half into this thing, and hang on, I got to count. By the time Hennig joined, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 19. You had 19 members of the NWO when you brought Hennig in. And yeah, some of them weren't still there, like Dennis Rodman.
Right.
But, and Big Bubba had gone. IRS had gone, but it still, you know, we're sitting here and it's like, at that point, Kurt Hennig making the turn, it was just like, well, okay, I guess it's another one.
Well, and to me, that was kind of that was almost a cheap heel turn. Like, because here you have this former WWF guy.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Like, I would have preferred to have Hennig stay face. I mean, could you imagine a program of him and Hogan?
Would be interesting.
You know, because think about the last time we saw that program was the roles reversed. You know, and you could even cut some, you know, up north, I used to say I was perfect because I was. And once again, the whole time I was up there, you took opportunity after opportunity after opportunity from guys like me that I can wrestle circles around you any day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Yeah.
Brother, you know, like to me, that would have been awesome. Like, but I think that was the problem. It got so unwieldy that you didn't have people that could legitimately fight these people.
Yeah.
And even the idea, it was always ridiculous. Even when it was 4 guys, why didn't the entire WCW locker room just come out and beat the crap out of them?
Yeah.
Like literally give Ming a case of beer and then unleash him.
Yeah.
Ming himself would have destroyed the NWO.
Yeah.
Like, with no, I mean, like, literally, they would have been in a bloody heap in the middle of the ring when Ming was done with them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that was always the weird thing. Like, why don't they just like jump these guys?
Yeah.
But I think it could have been interesting, like the building the Rebel Alliance, if you will, to defeat the Empire. Like, that's the story of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Eventually, the Empire loses.
Yeah.
But there's lots of twists and turns in how it gets there. And I think that was the thing. If the goal was always that the Empire was going to lose, and there's always the chance for redemption. I mean, when Hogan did break out the red and yellow again, we missed it. I mean, people did. I mean, hey, when we were at Mania 30 and Real American hit,
yeah,
that place popped.
Yeah, it did.
That was, man, that place went nuts. And of course, obviously the Silver Dome, brother. But at that point, people didn't care what he said up there. Like,
no,
it was awesome,
Yeah.
And so it would have allowed you to do that. You might have been able to get some legs out of Hogan again. There could have always been the idea that, the younger guys eventually turn on Hogan. And Hogan's kind of out in the wilderness. He has no, what has Hogan always had? Friends. He's always had the friends he helps. He always has the friends, that he shows up to save. Now you don't have that. Because you get some of these same guys, he's like, hey, I'm sorry, brother. And they go, hey, man, I can't forgive what you did. Sorry.
Yeah. Hey, dude, no, I sat here and listened to you in the summer of 96 when you said I was bumming gas to get to high school while you were selling out the world. Well, now I'm selling out the world and I don't got time for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so many different like ways they could have booked it, which once again, I think you could have had that angle been done properly. WCW might still be in business today.
Yeah. Which oddly enough, what I just said kind of off top of my head was exactly what Steve Austin told him for real.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to a point, was like, no, you didn't have any time for me back in 95 when I was trying to make a name. You said, no, I'm not working with you. Yeah, well, now I'm the main event, brother. Yeah. And I'm not working with you.
And see, what would have been awesome, that storyline would have worked, even in WWF. Eventually, you got to get to that match. But I think the idea that Austin would just be like, no, I'm not doing it because you're a bad guy. You treated me like crap.
Yeah.
I'm not doing you any favors now. Because then it still gives Hogan a little bit of an edge, and it makes everybody think about, well, was the red and yellow era everything it was cracked up to be?
Yeah.
Was it basically a castle made of lies? And that works. I mean, because wrestling at its best, when wrestling tells a story, it's hard to beat it. Like, and when you have these nuanced, layered stories, that's when wrestling's at its best.
Yeah.
And it also, you build these things out for a while. That's great, because guess what? You want to be able to have continuing feuds and storylines. You got to have what's next.
Yeah.
And there are any number of ways you could have spun that off that could have kept that company in great shape.
Yeah. And in fact, that was the whole issue with the NWO, as they kept going with it, is like, what's next?
I mean, here would have been a fun moment. Georgia Dome, Atlanta. Goldberg has just gone over Hogan. Hall and Nash hit the ring. You think they're about to beat the crap out of Goldberg. They turn on Hogan. And now Goldberg is the leader of the NWO. This machine that, like, everybody was going nuts when he won, but imagine how quickly that would have changed if all of a sudden turn with Goldberg at that moment.
That's true.
I mean, there's a number of things you could have done there that could have extended the life, because what ultimately happens, even after Goldberg, he gets hit with the cattle prod and Nash goes over.
Yeah.
What did that do?
And then not too long after that, you get the finger poke. And then that's when it's just completely.
What did that do for anybody?
Off the rail.
And I think because, WCW was already starting to, I think, a more realistic presentation. Even the idea they're calling them Scott Hall and Kevin Nash.
Yeah.
that's different. There's not Diesel, it's not Razor Ramon, it's not the Diamond Stud, it's not Vinny Vegas. You know, it's who these guys really are.
Yeah.
And so I think that was where some of these characters that might not have, especially for some of the characters that got over in the 80s or early 90s, that by that point the fans didn't really care about, they could have, you know, you could have breathed some life into some of these guys and still got out of them. I mean, especially with a stacked roster like WCW had.
Yeah. Where they were just opening the checkbooks.
Yeah. You know, the problem is they were opening the checkbooks. They just had no story to go with it.
Yeah.
Beyond the NWO. And I mean, the only guys that were coming close to that were some like the cruiserweights who were stealing the show. But once again, those guys were being held down.
Yeah. And not given, you know, good, prominent places on the card. Because the World Cruiserweight Championship was never treated like a main event belt.
No, I mean, you look at I always say some of the matches you would get in the first hour of Nitro. Some of the names that were going head to head regularly.
Yeah.
These are dream matches. Like, you know, getting a guy like Malenko against Jericho. That's a heck of a match.
Yeah.
Guerrero against Jericho, or Eddie Guerrero against Juventud Guerrero, or any number of these guys. These were awesome matches.
Psychosis, La Parka, Vampiro.
Yeah, and it was,
the list goes on.
The problem is you had these really awesome early matches. You had awesome end of the night angles, but what are you doing in that second hour of Nitro?
Yeah.
That was where I think having a solid mid card with some of these guys would have made for better television.
Yeah.
And also, hey, when they had to go do Thunder, this gives you more guys to work with over there as well, rather than the same guys all the time.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that, you know, like you say, that was the biggest problem that you ended up with in the NWO, was that you had this unbelievable start. And then they sort of rode that wave for a little while, but you know, then it just kind of came to an end. And then, you know, when you couldn't even get Hogan to agree to put Sting over clean at Starrcade, I mean, by then you're just like, oh, okay, all right, this is.
And I think this is where, you know, it would have been interesting at this point to see roles reversed. You're doing this angle in WWF with the way they were set up as a company, with the way they were doing creative. It would have been a lot different than I think what happens in WCW. Because ultimately WCW was a corporate environment that did not understand wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, they had the people that were ultimately writing the checks for WCW didn't understand the product. They didn't like the product. They liked the money it drew, but they didn't like the product itself.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you were also going up against now Vince, who literally threw caution to the wind to compete. I mean, can you imagine the NWO in Attitude Era WWF with the promos they could have cut? Stuff they could have said. Oh my God. It would have been it'd have been unreal. And so I think there were some things that WCW was able to give it that quick flash. Long term, they didn't have the ability to sustain it.
Right. And so the funny thing is I'm looking here. So Starrcade would have been the last Sunday in December. And you got a big jump. Almost over 1 million more people watched Nitro the next Monday after Starrcade, which makes sense because they went off the air with a fairly controversial finish. And okay, we got to figure out what's happened here, right? But after that, you start to see Nitro go down a little bit and you start to see Raw come up. And then by WrestleMania, that's it. And I think that was again, it's all because they just couldn't figure out what they were doing with the NWO. And so 4.6 million people watched Nitro on December 29th, 1997. That's the day after Starrcade.
Mhm.
April 27th, 1998, that number is down to 1.7.
Mm-hmm.
And it does go back up because this is when it starts to get really hot and just everybody's watching everything. But
Mhm.
you know, that's wild.
Yeah.
Well,
I think too, you look at the difference between WCW programming and WWF programming at that time. Yeah, you had some really hot angles at top. I mean, obviously you had Austin doing his thing, but you also had some really good mid-card angles.
Yeah.
In WWF at that time. Like everybody had a story. You could get invested in something.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think there was a problem with WCW, the outside of the NWO, how much were people really getting invested other than like Goldberg's rise? But we knew where that was. Eventually it's going to be the clash with Hogan.
Yeah.
And then what do we do with Goldberg after? Once again, another awesome start, but the follow-up was horrible.
Well, and same thing with him. What do? He's got to lose.
Mm-hmm.
How does he lose? And where do you go after he loses?
Mm-hmm.
Has there ever really been some huge winning streak angle done right?
Never.
Closest
was Taker at Mania.
But then, like, again, where do you go afterwards? You bring him back for some return matches against Brock, which didn't go that great. And then you have him lose to Roman Reigns. And then he comes back at Mania, whatever year it was, and he had that horrible match with John Cena that I don't think anybody ever wanted to see. And then what? The last real match you're going to remember with The Undertaker is that, well, if you watch the Saudi Arabia shows, is that thing with Goldberg in Saudi Arabia, which was just horrible.
Yeah.
And then you get the movie that they made with him and AJ Styles. So, I don't know.
Well, what I'm saying with that is up to 30, they ran that winning streak angle perfectly. But once it's over, you got to have a really good plan for where you're going with this.
And I don't think they did. I think having the build up to finally having him lose, I mean, that was crazy. But then it doesn't go anywhere. And then they tried to do the big winning streak thing with Asuka,
right,
a couple years ago, and that just fell flat because she just lost flat to Charlotte at WrestleMania for no reason.
And I think too, even though Asuka is tremendous in the ring and an outstanding worker, physically, she is not as imposing a presence as Goldberg was.
No, she's not.
I mean, there's something to be said for somebody winning because they're that good of a technician. But there's also, for a streak, it's got to have somebody just looks almost unbeatable.
Yeah.
And I mean, Asuka is tough. She also doesn't look like somebody that would never be beaten either.
That's true.
Like, I mean, when Goldberg was in that streak, I mean, literally, his going to the ring and back took longer than his matches.
Yeah.
And really, I think what gets forgotten, even though we talk about how big Austin was in this era, and there is about a 6-month period where Goldberg was right there with Austin in terms of
absolutely
how hot he was. Like, there's a period where you've seen as many Goldberg shirts as you would Austin 316 shirts.
Yeah.
And we sometimes forget for that brief period how big Goldberg was.
Yep.
And and frankly, probably that Goldberg era kept WCW in a better position for about 6 months longer than probably they would have been.
Or even a year.
Yeah. But then what do you do after that? I think that was the challenge. It was always the follow-up.
And then that's when they really started going downhill, was 99, because the first week of 99 is when they did the finger poke thing. And then what?
And I think what I think WCW by that point always forgot was, even though they tried to present themselves as being a national organization, which they were. I mean, they were a national company in the late 90s. At their core, they were still Southern wrestling. And Southern wrestling fans, things like the finger poke of doom, that works for WWF. $1 million man trying to buy the belt from Andre. That works. You didn't do that in the South. Like, even if we hate, you went out and won the belt in a match, we'll at least live with that. But when you just lay down and that's how you win, no. I mean, you even look at the audience that night, they're like, this is crap. Like, and I think that was, I mean, people will say a lot about Vince McMahon's legacy in pro wrestling. And clearly he is the most important figure ever associated with pro wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, certainly for the last 40 years.
Most of his career, what WWF was really good at was creating stars, and using these storylines to build up to that. WCW never really used their storylines to build new stars. They kind of just kept who was there and just ran with it.
Yeah. I mean, the only what from that period from 95 to 2001, I mean, what, Goldberg and Page were the only real stars that they made over there. Because everybody else,
and look at the talent you had on their roster. I mean, you're telling me Jericho could not have done something in the main event in WCW?
Oh, certainly
that era.
Yeah.
I mean, good of a worker as he was. I mean,
and
good
talker
as he was. God, Jericho would have been awesome. And also, it wouldn't have looked weird because you've got a guy like Shawn Michaels that's carrying the strap on the other side.
Yeah.
A guy like Austin that's not. I mean, Austin's not a little guy, but he's not Hogan.
Yeah.
I mean, so it would have worked, and it would have been somebody homegrown that is also in his 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So when these guys are in their 40s, have to hang it up. We've still got shelf life of Jericho.
Yep.
And I look at guys like Eddie, for God's sakes, Eddie Guerrero. I mean, like, you look at what WWF did with some of these same mid-card guys in WCW, what they did with them just a couple years later. Turned Jericho into a major star. They turned Guerrero into a major star. You couldn't do that in WCW.
No, sure they could have. They just didn't want to.
That's the thing, and
just didn't want to.
And you also, end of the day, in the WWF, there's one final voice when it comes to creative.
Yeah,
that's Vince.
It's Vince.
And I think a lot of people knew you don't mess with Vince on creative. You're going to do it his way, or you're not going to be here anymore.
Yeah.
Ask Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah.
Warrior. Ask Jeff Jarrett. Like, what's going to happen here? And I think that was the thing. There was never that Vince in WCW to say, this is a crap idea.
Yeah, no, we're not doing this.
We're not doing this. Like, and I think also Vince had the creative freedom to do whatever he needed to do. Bischoff never had that creative freedom. Not to mention, you had guys that could call their own booking.
Yeah.
They were good. And I think at wrestling at its best, I mean, obviously as people, we like to win when we can. But to me, I think the really great wrestlers are the ones that, whether they are standing over their opponent with their arms raised or they are looking up at the lights, as long as they got that audience over, they're happy. Like, that's the performance art of wrestling that I think sometimes gets forgotten. It's not Nobody cares about your win losses. Did you give the audience the experience they wanted?
Yeah.
And that was, WWF does a better job at that.
Yeah.
Traditionally than anybody else. For all their flaws, more times than not, there's a reason they're a multi-billion-dollar company right now.
Yeah.
And it's not because it's consistently bad booking. As bad as it is now, over time.
And as bad as it's been for a while.
Yeah. But when Vince had competition, he's going to put his duds out there. I mean, we do look at the Attitude Era through rose-colored glasses. There was its fair share of crap.
Yeah, there was some stuff that you see like, oh.
The nuggets of gold inside that crap made the crap worthwhile digging through, because you're going to find those little nuggets of gold in there that are awesome.
Yeah.
And WCW never did that. But I think that was one of the things, like, they were in that era. I don't know how much long-term planning they were really doing.
No.
I mean, it was more, and also they were so driven by ratings, that we want to beat them we want TNT to go over USA. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
But guess what? You're giving pay-per-view matches away for free.
Yeah.
Vince would have never given Hogan
and Goldberg, no.
And Goldberg ever. That's Mania, or that's SummerSlam.
Oh yeah.
That's what that goes to. That's one of those two. It's either that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You would have never done that on free TV. And I think that's where, it's great. You got that one win that week. And also how the fact they announced it on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Had they announced that the week before, the Georgia Dome would have been sold out.
Well, it was sold out. I mean, it sold out what they
they were able to do for the allotment and the setup for it. But I'm saying you give that more time to build with as hot as Goldberg was in Atlanta, his hometown, where he played college football, where he played professional football. Like,
no, you're right. If they would have built that for longer, they could have opened up the whole stadium and sold it all out.
It would have looked like WrestleMania 3 on Monday Nitro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. They could have sold out 60 or 70,000 tickets easy.
And like, it was, but you gave it away for free.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even when Vince gave, a title change, like when Foley beat, Foley won the title on Raw.
Yeah.
But that led to something bigger. It led to pay-per-view sales. It led to merchandise sales. It led to, there was a plan for that. If you're just doing it to win the ratings war, that's not enough. That's not a good enough reason.
Yeah.
You got to have a long-term plan after that.
Yeah. It's funny looking back at some of these ratings numbers, and there's weeks where there's no Raw. Like now it's crazy to think about, but like back in 97 and 98, they were taking Raw off the air to do like the dog shows. Do you remember that?
US Open?
That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like it was like the Westminster Dog Show, and they would have the dog show instead of Raw, which that's unbelievable to think about.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is crazy to think about.
I mean, I remember as a kid being mad when it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and you turn on USA and it's like a Shih Tzu.
Just some dog being walked across the stage. You're like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I came here to see Rikishi's butt. What's this?
What's this dog?
Yeah, what's this here? Like, is this an angle? Is this pepper? Is it about to get eaten? Like, what's going on here? Once again, there was crap in the Attitude Era.
Yes, there was.
All right.
And then that double cage.
Oh God. The dog fight match.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was awesome because there's like dogs just like crapping on the ringside area. It's pretty fun.
I told you that when I did one of those interviews with like an OVW guy, that he said they did one of their December or January match was like a double cage. And I said, wait a minute. And he's like, it wasn't a good match. I said, wait, hang on, brother. Hang on. Let me make sure I've got this right.
Mm-hmm.
Al Snow is the owner and booker of OVW. He was in a double cage match. That was horrible.
Yeah.
The worst match maybe ever WWF has ever done. He should have known this wasn't going to work.
Yeah. Or he's maybe trying to erase that from the record when you have maybe the worst cage match ever.
Oh,
maybe it's a way to beat you to the bottom sometimes.
They put the big blue cage inside a Hell in a Cell, and it's like, oh boy, this I don't even understand how they thought that was going to work.
No.
Well, it might have had a chance if they didn't have the dogs.
Yeah. Yeah.
The dogs just set that one over the top.
Theory, the idea of dogs barking and doing stuff like that is really cool. But then again, you look at like they're dogs. Like and also I kind of feel bad because like how freaked out were probably some of those dogs.
Oh yeah.
Like that was like almost cruel to the animals. Like
you're like, hey, wait a minute. Let's put these dogs out here in front of this arena with 20,000 people hooting and screaming. And back in 98 or 9, I don't remember, but there's going to be people with cameras with flashes.
And imagine the people around ringside. They weren't being nice to the dogs. They're probably yelling, "You stupid dog!" Like all this stuff, like it just, in theory, it sounds cool.
Yeah.
Execution, it was horrible.
Yeah. It sounds neat, but ooh.
You could go even the idea of a dog cage match. You just didn't need the actual dogs. Like, no way you can do that. Like,
you made me eat my dog, and I'm gonna have all my dog's friends around ringside. Never mind that Al Snow's dog, I think, was a Chihuahua, and they brought a bunch of Rottweilers out.
Yeah, like, no offense to Pepper. Pepper could have been the nicest dog ever, but a Rottweiler, that's like an appetizer.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know. Which shows there was crap on both sides.
Absolutely.
Vince did a better job of hooking you early, hooking you in the middle of the show, going up to later. And I think that was his success.
Yeah. I mean, that's what put him over the top. And like we're saying, the NWO, great to start, and it just never. They just lost it.
And I think what
completely lost it
at that time is he had to build new stars. He had no other choice.
Yeah, no, I mean, Vince had lost everybody.
And I think the ability to, obviously Michaels was here, Hart was there. They're already kind of established, but you're developing guys like Austin, The Rock,
Hunter.
Like, that's three pretty solid in like basically homegrown developed talents.
Yeah.
This wasn't Austin was over in WCW and we just signed him.
And then in what, 98, probably late 98, Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
Or when did Kurt Angle come in? I can't remember. I mean, it was in the 90s.
9, I think. So
and then Rikishi gets over probably more than he ever should have. And then you don't exactly get these, bums, the Hardys and the Edge and Christian and the Dudleys in your tag team roster either. And I mean, they got hot in early 99. Mm-hmm. So,
and you have teams like the New Age Outlaws that got over. Yeah. Foley got over. I mean, you still had Taker. I mean, so if you look at like by the end, if you listed the talent that WWF had by the end of 99 compared to what WCW was working with, maybe WCW has better names as far as the average person probably know Hulk Hogan over Rikishi.
Yeah.
But in terms of what fans were wanting, it wasn't that. So,
yeah. Yep. But hey, for that one night in July 96, 25 years ago, I mean, that was wild.
It changed everything. I mean, the wrestling business, there's a lot of evolutions in wrestling. I mean, you see things building if you look at it historically, but never overnight did wrestling as a business change that fundamentally. Maybe beyond maybe Mania. I mean, when Mania came out, that changed the game. But this was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 years before, if you would ever ask me, would Hulk Hogan ever be a bad guy?
No, absolutely not.
Why? No, that's not happening. Like, and here it was. And I'll argue, if you ever want to, the debate about Hogan and his place in pro wrestling history, he at one point was maybe the most over baby face ever, as far as the quintessential baby face.
Yeah.
And he was also maybe one of the most hated heels
ever.
It's hard to do. You get guys that are great heels but can never be a baby face, or guys that are, you can never have Ricky Steamboat as a bad guy.
No.
As good of a talent and performer as Steamboat was, he could never be a bad guy. He could never be a heel. But Hogan did it. And so there's something to be said for that. And
well, and and I just looked, I didn't realize this. I didn't realize it happened like right here. Up until May of 96, there was very much kind of a back and forth between Raw and Nitro. And then Nitro won the ratings the week before Hall came out, the week before Memorial Day. And then Raw has 1 week, June 10th of 96, where they won by like 100,000 viewers. That was it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when the NWO started going. And then you end up going to April 13th of 98, which I have to assume is the week after Mania.
Yeah.
Of 98, when Austin wins the belt. That's the next time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was, it's wild to think like how big of a deal the NWO was during this time.
Really, this is the closest anybody ever beat Vince. Never came to that. And if you would have told somebody 5 years earlier there was going to be a company that was going to consistently beat WWF in ratings and in cultural relatability and importance, it feels no way. No, you're taking on this company that is truly a national company. No, it's not happening. And I think, unfortunately, the way that WWE has remembered WCW is almost as a joke. Ultimately, it's never the fact that they're the guys that almost put you out of business.
Yeah.
And came real close to doing it. Like, I think that's when they kind of, and that's where I think it's a lot of Vince's insecurities sometimes coming into play, that he knows that. So what do? We kind of turn him into a joke. We make him not look as big, or they were doomed.
I do wonder how close it was to really saying that they were going to put Vince out of business. I sometimes wonder if that's a little bit of hyperbole. I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just thinking about it wrong, but I mean, yes, they were competition, but was it really that tight? Because I mean, I'm looking at these numbers, and Raw is drawing good numbers during this whole time. It's not like they're, drawing numbers like NXT's drawing now, where they're not even getting 1 million viewers a week. In fact, these numbers that they're losing with in 97, they'd
kill to have today.
They'd love to have these numbers today.
Well, and I do think
3.5 million people.
I mean, we didn't have DVR during the Monday Night Wars. Like you didn't have on-demand streaming in the Monday Night Wars. So I mean, I've often wondered, when people look at the ratings, it's a different dynamic now in the world. Like,
well, no, because I think DVR numbers are included.
What I'm saying are things like Hulu and other things like watching online. Like, you may not watch that event happen live, but you watch the clip of it on YouTube.
True.
That's not going to show up in a television rating, but you're still watching the product. So, but I think, I remember people used to set up 2 televisions.
Yeah. So you could watch them both.
Like, I remember it was hard for a time to find cable splitters because people were, they were using it to watch Raw and Nitro, or during football season, they're keep the football game on and wrestling on the other one.
Yeah.
I mean, when you had at times wrestling drawing a bigger audience than Monday Night Football, like, that's unreal.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, the NWO and Austin simultaneously were those booster rockets the industry needed. And I don't think one or the other could have carried it to the heights it went. Both?
No. Yeah. Yeah, because you needed the competition for Austin to a point. And they got it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
also, you had compelling characters to go up against Austin.
Yeah.
You had Bret Hart, you had Shawn Michaels, you had The Rock, you had Taker, you had Mr. McMahon.
Yeah.
Those were, and actually it's funny, we talk about maybe 2 of the greatest heels working simultaneously together on separate shows. You got Hollywood Hogan
and Vince.
Yeah. I mean, I will argue Vince might be the most over heel ever in pro wrestling. He might be the greatest heel ever.
Still over as a heel today, if he wants to be.
If he wants to be, yeah.
Because that's what 23 years or whatever later, that's what sold the Kofi Kingston match at Mania 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Was the fact that everybody believed that, I do think Vince is holding this guy down in the back.
He's always done this, and I think that's the only, I think there's very few characters that can still get over today with a gimmick they had 25 years ago. There's only a handful of them in the business because a lot of them, they can't wrestle anymore, clearly.
Yeah.
Or maybe the looks aren't what they used to be, but Flair can still go out and do a promo.
Yeah, he can.
The Rock can still go out and cut a promo. The Rock could still go in the ring if he wanted to.
Yeah, he doesn't want to.
He doesn't want to.
Doesn't need to.
Yeah, he doesn't need. Yeah, exactly. There's no need to. But it's like there's only a handful of guys that transcend that, and I think that's what gets started in this like week period, which I think really might be one of the most consequential 1 month periods ever in the history of pro wrestling. It's what changed it from. It's the day that the territory rock and wrestling died, and the version of wrestling we know today was born.
Yeah, and I mean, almost not even a month, just like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I mean, from late June to early mid-July. I mean, that's it.
And give those writers credit for writing that awesome promo for Steve Austin to use at King of the Ring.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure that thing was worked through for weeks and creative, and Austin did it perfectly.
Focus groups.
Yeah, it was focus. Yeah,
they had focus groups for it.
Yeah,
whole deal. Yeah, you know it.
I mean, and I think this is really, if they want to get wrestling back to where it was, let guys cut promos like you used to. Like, I mean, there's no I was talking about Flair in '86. There's no way you can run Ric Flair 86 promos today on television.
No.
There's no way you're doing that. But that wasn't scripted. That was literally Flair telling you what he did the night before or what he's intending to do that night or in the upcoming weekend.
Yeah.
Like, there was no, Rick, can you look over your script quick? You got any questions about the script? What are you talking about? You think they ever gave Cornette a script?
No.
You know,
they didn't.
You think they ever gave Big Dust a script?
Well, so Cornette said that like a couple times, the ones in like 97 or 8 when he was like supposed to be the NWA coming out, he's like, yeah, I did actually write those down, and we ran them past the attorneys to make sure I wasn't going to say anything that was going to get us in court.
Right.
But still, no, they weren't saying anything.
Yeah.
There was no writers writing that.
Do you really think that a group of writers wrote the Ronnie Garvin went up like the Challenger promo?
No, that made Dusty just cut the switch. Pew!
Still one of the awesomest promos ever. Like,
I'd like to see a video of that. I wish there was video.
Yeah, there's the holy grail right there.
Yeah, we don't want to see Tom McGee.
Yeah, no.
We want to see
Corny talking about the Challenger.
Like, oh.
Yeah, even then you're like, oh wow, he went there,
Yeah.
But see, that was the thing. They gave wrestlers are not actors.
No.
And if you give people parameters, this is what you can, this is what you can't do. But however you accomplish what you need to do, that's much more effective. And this, and I come from a background where literally my job is public speaking every day.
Yeah.
I've got to get over with a different audience every
day.
And I know what I have to do, but nobody's handing me a script saying this is what you have to talk about on your tour. It wouldn't work.
Yeah.
You got to let people, and even what they're doing right now with Roman Reigns, it's the best stuff they've ever done with him. Like, this is what they should have been doing years ago with Roman Reigns.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, when he does finally turn babyface, it's going to be a huge pop when he finally turns, because the audience is loving him as a heel. And I think that's where they're doing some really good stuff there. But when it's a team of writers that don't know wrestling, don't know wrestling crowds, it's always going to fall flat.
When your new hire writer doesn't even know who your world champion is.
Yeah, really.
It's like wait, hang on. Yeah, obviously that one just came out, but it's like, come on.
And I think too, it's funny. There's one of the biggest problems with WCW is they got burned so many times by having wrestlers in charge that they said, we're not going to have wrestlers in charge anymore. And I think the problem in WWF now is you really need your writers to be fans. You need people like
they
us.
Need to know what's going on.
It knows how it works, the ins and outs. I'm not saying necessarily that you have to be in the business to know that, but you need to be able to say, man, remember when they did this angle back in this? That was awesome. When we do something similar to this, it could work.
Yeah.
You're not getting that now. And you're not finding, and also Vince doesn't want, I think, anybody to get over bigger than WWE. Ultimately, WWE is the star.
Yeah.
And so, that's the challenge. So if you get a guy like Kofi, or you get a guy like Zack Ryder that gets over on their own, or Rusev, don't get over on your own.
No.
You can't do that, which total opposite of the Attitude Era. Go out there and get over.
Yeah.
You got 3 minutes in the mic. Do the best you can.
Do something.
Okay. And that's what I think we're missing. And because there's not it's just so overly scripted. Like, it's ridiculous. It's bad enough trying to remember everything you do in the ring. Now you got to remember this promo I got to cut for 5 minutes after. All right.
Yeah. I just, the one thing I can't believe is, why aren't these guys like, I tell you what, if you put a microphone in my hand, I'm going to go out and say whatever I want to say until you either cut the microphone off or you fire me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care which one you do. But if you put me in front of a microphone, I'm talking, and I'm talking like me.
Yeah.
If you want to fire me, that's fine. I'll go sell real estate. I'll go sell cars. But I'm going to do something better than what I'm doing here.
Why did the pipe bomb get over as big as it did? Because the closest thing someone has heard to a real promo.
Yeah, in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that pipe bomb promo, it'd be interesting how that would have fit in like the ecosystem of the Attitude Era. Because you would have had probably on that same show The Rock doing something killer. You would have had Austin doing something killer.
Yeah.
You'd have had DX doing something. And then you would have Punk go out there and give that promo.
Yeah.
Without any of that, it stands so much higher. And don't get me wrong, that was an incredible promo. If anybody wants to learn how to do a promo, you need to read that one and you need to learn that one.
Yeah.
That needs to be in like your Mount Rushmore of promos.
Yeah.
But I think I mean, these guys, it's not believable. If you're just giving me lines, I don't believe it. So if I don't believe it, the audience isn't going to believe it.
No, they're not. No, I mean, this is not like TV.
No.
You know?
And
I mean, it can be like TV, but the thing is on TV shows, we're given these packages of this person who we believe in, and they don't say something that seems out of the ordinary for what they believe in, you know. Like, do you ever watch, or did you ever watch Mad Men?
Yeah.
It's like, yes, we believe that this advertising guy, Don Draper, is a drunk and he's a womanizer, and pretty much anything that he does or says within the context of being an alcoholic womanizer,
right,
we can believe is in character for this person. You know, visiting a children's hospital and giving a bunch of money to charities, probably not in the package character of Don Draper within this show, right? And instead we see these wrestlers that are being given whatever writing, and it's a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense for the person that you see on the television screen. Well, and that's the issue.
And I think too, you know, the guy that plays Don Draper is a world-class actor.
That's true.
It's his job to make you believe that he is that character.
And wrestlers are athletes.
Wrestlers are athletes first.
They're not really actors.
And I think that's where, you know, you've got to, the closest thing you can have, or think about like characters in pro sports. Guys like a Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
You know, that was so believable because that was just Dennis Rodman playing basketball.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't, imagine if the Bulls said, all right, Rodman, we want you to do some outlandish stuff, but here's the script of the outlandish stuff we want you to do.
Yeah.
Like, that wouldn't have worked. And at the same token, you just let these guys be themselves.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You hear some of these guys, so much of the stuff that got over with the crowd was stuff they were doing behind the scenes, just joking around, having a good time, killing time. Like, I mean, I think it was, you know, Road Dogg say about like you didn't know? That was a joke they played on each other, like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And just one day he did it on a mic and the crowd loved it. You know, like, that's the thing. If it happens organically, it's going to get over. If you force it, I don't know of anything that has ever been forced in pro wrestling that got over huge.
No, not in the last 30 or 40 years.
Yeah. You know, I mean, do you think like when Lawler was running Memphis, you think they said, hey, King, here's your promo tonight?
No.
I mean, what would Jerry Lawler have done if somebody handed him a script in Memphis around like 1979?
He'd have just threw it in the garbage can.
Yeah,
Probably
he would have
slapped
laughed at
him.
him. Like, what is this nonsense? You know, like
He'd have just slapped him and threw it in the garbage can.
I mean, could you imagine if like if David Crockett handed Flair a script before he came out? Flair's like, I'm heading back in my limo.
Yeah, I'll see you later.
I'm going back to the Radisson. I'm out of here.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm out of here.
Yeah. And that's where, there was a believability there.
Yeah.
Because it was real. Like what Flair's talking about, and also these guys that live the gimmick. You have to morph the gimmick has to be real. Like if it's not real to the person playing it, it's not going to get over with the audience.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Austin you saw as Stone Cold isn't that far from the Steve Williams in real life.
No, it's not.
The Rock isn't that far removed from the real Rock. The Rock is one of the most charismatic people in the world.
Yeah.
Like it's unreal how good he is.
Just being himself.
Yeah. And there's a skill for that. That's a skill. And of course that was almost ruined. Rocky Maivia, everybody.
Mm-hmm. With that whatever hair that
Whatever
he
that
had.
was. Yeah, like that was that and also Steve Austin, the ringmaster.
The ringmaster.
We don't even let him talk. Really? Like, you're not gonna let Austin talk?
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Like, and I think that's what gets these guys over. I think that's what made the NWO work for that period. It was real.
Yeah.
It was, when you can blur the line, we all know, everybody goes in watching wrestling. We know that it is scripted. We know that it is planned out. We know that. But so is every scripted television show you've ever watched in history.
Exactly.
And that's okay. Every movie you've watched has been planned and scripted. The brilliance is when you can get the audience to forget that they're watching something that is planned and scripted.
Yeah.
And they suspend their disbelief to believe that it's actually happening.
Well, and that's I mean, I'm sure I've said this before. That's one of the things that annoys me about people like now who's like, well, wrestling can't be as popular as it was because of DVR and everybody knows it's fake. And it's like, no, bro, I sat in a movie theater where grown people started crying during Star Wars, man.
Yeah.
Han Solo got killed.
Yeah.
Don't nobody jump on me for no spoilers. That movie came out 6 years ago. If you hadn't seen it, that's your fault.
Yeah.
Grown people sitting in movie theaters, man, crying when Han Solo gets killed.
Yeah.
Don't tell me people can't get wrapped up in fake fictional characters. They do it.
Well, okay. How many people watch, The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones? You
People
can get things over culturally. Yeah.
People absolutely suspend their lives for an hour on Sunday to sit down at their TV sets to watch Walking Dead because you can't miss it. I'm not going to miss this hour. There's no Game of Thrones was an even bigger one than that.
I mean, I find it funny. Game of Thrones, a fantasy world with like dragons and stuff, and they call wrestling camping. Really?
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, it's all about the story. You get the right story in the hands of the right people to execute the story.
Game of Thrones was getting 14 million viewers a week on HBO.
Yeah.
HBO, they were getting 14 million viewers a week.
Yeah. That's big money.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, it's going to, and I think the biggest problem that we've talked about it before. If you get signed to a WWE developmental deal, you're being taught how to be a WWE performer. Never mind the fact that the role they're going to give for you may not be the role you need to be.
Yeah, no, they're just going to plug.
And also, you don't get the territories anymore to get over. Like, even if you're going from one bingo hall to the other, you're dealing with usually hardcore fans. You know, the territories, yeah, you had your hardcores, but you also had, you know, mom taking the kids down on Sunday afternoon after church to watch wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, that's what you did. And you learned how to get over to those audiences. It taught you things that you're not going to get in a confined, sort of sterile environment. You almost have to be out there in the world to learn how to get over.
Yeah.
And that's where I think, you know, what works in Texas may not work in Bill Watts's territory.
No.
Or what works in Eddie Graham's territory may not work up in New York. But what it did was it learned you learned how to adapt as a performer.
Yeah.
And that's what the great ones do that. And I mean, a guy like Flair could go anywhere and get over.
Yeah. And did.
But I can guarantee you it wasn't the same Ric Flair all the time. There were nuances to that character. He knew that in certain markets, this is how he needs to play the role of Ric Flair to make it effective.
Yeah, because I'm sure there were some places that if he'd have said, I'm going to have fun with all your women tonight at the Marriott, that, you know, hillbilly such and such would have showed up with a howitzer. And, you know, maybe don't do that here.
Yeah. And you know, that's where you have to know, it's so important to know your audience. And when you're in an audience driven business, corporately, if you do not understand your audience, there's a problem.
Well, and I think that's the whole problem with WWE is they don't understand who's watching.
No.
And that's why it's gone downhill. And I don't know if they understood who was watching 25 years ago either. They just struck gold.
I think they had a better sense because really the Attitude Era was designed for males basically 13 to 35.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what that was designed for. Like, that's who they steered into.
Yeah.
And I mean, just look at some of the advertisers they were having there, you know, like it was big deal. But, and I think even for someone like AEW, I don't think AEW understands how to grow their audience. They're doing a show for their hardcores they have. They're not doing things to learn how to expand that audience.
Maybe they figure they don't need to.
Now, I mean, I think the challenge is if you're not trying to expand your audience, eventually you're gonna you're gonna
run out.
Yeah, you spin your wheels in the mud, and so
yeah.
So I think that's, you know, there's a lot of lessons that can be taken. I mean, everybody's trying to recreate the Attitude Era.
Yeah,
if they, but they can't. It was this perfect combination of things that worked, and
you had stars.
You had stars. Yeah, I mean, who are really your stars today in wrestling?
It's nobody.
I mean, like even people that didn't watch wrestling, knew who Hulk Hogan was. They knew who Ric Flair was. They knew who Andre the Giant was.
That was my question. I asked this to somebody one time. They said, "Oh, so and so's over." Oh, really? You think he is? I tell you what. Go to Times Square in New York City and ask however many people you want to ask if they know who this guy is. Do you know who such and such is? No. Okay. If you start asking people in Times Square who so and so is, and they don't know, this guy ain't over. Summer of 1998, you go to Times Square and start asking people who Steve Austin is. What percentage of people do you think are going to have heard who Stone Cold Steve Austin is?
Yeah.
50, 60%?
I'd say it'd be even higher.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. Yeah, probably higher.
I mean, because you think about, even if you're not watching wrestling, what if you watch MTV and you see Celebrity Deathmatch?
Yeah.
I've never watched an Austin match, but I know, that's that guy on Celebrity Deathmatch.
Yeah.
You know, that's the guy. My mom saw him on Regis and Kathy Lee.
Yeah.
Like,
that
was, you know, he's on Jay Leno's show. He's on David Letterman. Like, you didn't need to know anything about the character, anything about what's happening in wrestling to know that's the champ.
Yeah. And you knew who Stone Cold Steve Austin was.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the same thing with Hogan. That's Flair, Macho Man. I mean, all the great ones, mean, even if you didn't know anything about Randy Savage as a wrestler, let's got in Slim Jim commercial.
So, yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's all you need to know. And that's when you're over. When you can easily be recognized, not just by the casual wrestling fan, but the casual just person.
The guy on the street.
The guy on the street knows who you are.
Yeah.
You're over.
Yep.
And we don't have that. I mean, I don't know if there's actually the circumstances exist now for a wrestler to get over to that level. I don't know how you do it.
No, I mean, well,
because the industry's different now. You know, you're not going to be able to let Flair cut the promos he did in '86. You're not going to be able to let Austin or The Rock do the promos they did in the late '90s.
Some of Austin stuff you could, much of Austin stuff you could probably get away with.
Go to The Rock. You know, you think any company's going to make Poontang Pie T-shirts today?
No.
Like that gets you canceled, kids. Like,
yeah, it's not going to work.
So I think that's where the problem is in the environment we're in. And I think it's better as a society, we're more sensitive to these matters. Believe me, I'm glad that our society is not like it was in the late 90s.
Yeah.
Like we're a better place. But I think the problem is you lose when you're going right up to that edge of what is acceptable and not acceptable. In the hands of great performers, that's a really awesome area for them to be in.
Yeah.
Like Richard Pryor or Lenny Bruce or in his day, Andrew Dice Clay, going right up to that line and saying, I'm going to push it.
Yeah.
And the creativity that gives you, just the energy that gives you, you don't have that today. They're not going to let Roman Reigns go out and cut the promo he wants to cut.
And part of the issue with wrestling now is that it is so scripted that if somebody says something that's pushing the line,
it's scripted.
Yeah, that somebody told them to say that. So it doesn't get any real heat on the wrestler.
No.
It just is like, okay, Vince McMahon and these writers are idiots and this is bogus and click. And I'm just turning the TV off. It doesn't make you want to see that wrestler get beat up.
I mean, if somebody ever wanted to get truly over, get like a mid-card WWE guy in the middle of your cheesy interview statement. You just say, I'm going to get fired tonight. And I'm going to get fired on national television. But I'm going to come out, and when I'm supposed to do my funny little promo, I'm not. And I'm like, this is crap. I've worked 10 years to get to this point. I'm a freaking joke.
Yeah.
Come out here and make you laugh every week. Actually, I don't even do that because the material sucks. I can't even make you laugh.
Yeah.
You know, I'm out here busting my body. I'm tired. I'm worn out. I hurt. And I've got to play these BS games. Screw this. And just walk off. Immediately when your non-compete is up.
Yeah.
How many people are going to be like knocking down the doors to get you in?
Yeah, but even with that, unless WWE hires you back and just lets you go, which we've seen with CM Punk, they won't do that. But what are you going to do? Ring of Honor. Okay, maybe you go to Ring of Honor. What are you going to do? You going to go to AEW and they're going to make you do jobs to Orange Cassidy?
Well, you would have to have the right situation where you could almost become traveling through these territories. You know,
yeah.
Now, granted, you're going to be really marketing to the smart fans. You know, little Johnny
but that's again, though, that's all there is anymore.
But I think that's if you want to get over to the extent you can get over today, that is maybe the best you could do. Although then again, if you have that moment where you go completely off script, it's going to be viral. People are going to watch that. People are going to watch it on YouTube. I guarantee it'll get national attention.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I remember when Punk cut the pipe bomb. There were legitimate articles about that. Like, people were kind of like, is this actually real?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when he's showing up at Comic-Con with the belt, talking crap to Hunter, that's awesome. Like, he's taking a picture of his belt in his fridge.
Yeah.
Like, there's ways you can do that to create a name for yourself. The problem is you got to have the platform then to carry that over into the ring as a character.
Yeah.
And the opportunities are much less today. But I like to think if you're creative in the ring, you can be creative in the character you put together.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, you know, Vince is always, well, I need a barber, I need a garbage man, I need a plumber, I need a cop.
Yeah.
That's interchangeable. It's not the situation where you have like the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes being the son of the plumber, baby. You know,
Yeah.
that worked because what was Dusty Rhodes? The son of a plumber.
The common man.
He was the common man, you know, like that worked. You could not have taken Ric Flair and put him in the common man polka dot tights. It's not going to work. Ric Flair's not even the common man. Ric Flair's not coming over to unclog my toilet.
No, and then, you know, that's the whole thing with the NWO, like we started off.
Mm-hmm.
Who of these guys fit?
Mm-hmm.
Hulk Hogan fit. He came from up north. He was promised all this money, and you know that was the promo that he cut. He's like, they told me I was going to be in these movies and I was going to have all this, that, and the other, and I'm still waiting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still waiting for all that. And you could believe it when he's saying that.
Mm-hmm. The best heel promos are the ones where the heel is right.
Oh yeah.
Like, yes, they're bad, but deep down, they're right. And for Hogan, the fans turned on him first. Hogan didn't turn on the fans. I'm doing the same thing I've been doing for 15 years, brother, trying to entertain you guys from one end of the world to the other.
Mm-hmm.
This is the thanks I get, okay, for being a big part of your childhood, for giving you so many happy memories.
Yeah.
This is what I get. You boo me? What have I ever done to make you want to boo me?
Yeah.
Other than be the best I could be at what I did. And here you guys come out and boo me. All right, you want this? Fine. F you.
You got it.
You know,
you fans can stick it.
There you go. And it worked because it was believable. Like, you actually in a weird way, you have a sympathy for the heel, that you understand the heel while they're doing it. And that when you do that, they're not just a nameless, faceless bad guy. They're not just, they're a person that's doing things people do, having human emotions that we've all had at times.
Yeah. But these people, they still hate him.
Yeah. And all I've tried to do is entertain you. I've just tried to make you happy. That's all I've been trying to do. You know, do you think
that was
every mall and tell little Johnny and little Jimmy to say his prayers and take his vitamins? You know, I'd rather slept in that day. I'd rather be on my jet ski out in Tampa. You know, like, but it's, you know, it worked. And Hall and Nash, the same thing. But when you get Virgil there, who's ever been emotionally invested in Virgil?
Yeah, for more than like that 2-week period in, you know, 91 where he finally turned on DiBiase.
And like, you know, who was going to be like really crazy over fake Sting?
Yeah.
Everybody, name your favorite fake Sting match. Which one do we show to students of wrestling today?
Yeah.
You don't. And that's the thing. If you have the NWO would have worked better if maybe they stayed between 3 to 6 people their entire time.
Yeah.
Like, make sure it is top loaded.
Yeah.
And you know, that would have worked.
You don't need mid-carders and jobbers.
No, you don't.
In your factions.
Because also, if you see a guy jobbing and he's wearing an NWO shirt, the NWO just jobbed.
Yeah. Exactly.
That doesn't reflect well on the guys at the upper end.
Right.
If you're going to do that, have the one or two designated kind of bump guys that are going to get thrown around the ring, that are going to get Sting whipping them with the bat. They're going to take the diamond cutter, because you're not going to have Hogan take it just yet. You're not going to have Hall take it just yet. You're going to have Nash. You use that for pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But we'll have, a believable big guy like Scott Norton take it. It's impressive. You diamond cutter Virgil. I could diamond cutter Virgil. Like, half the people listening to this could diamond cutter Virgil.
Yeah. And it doesn't have any
oomph. It doesn't have
there's nothing to it.
And those are the things, like I've always said, wrestling is a really simple business at its core. You talk people in the door and you give them a heck of a show.
Yeah.
You do that, you're going to be successful. Like, the problem is when we overcomplicate pro wrestling,
which has been the issue for quite some time now.
Hey, I mean, you could have AEW and WWE produce a wet dream and they'd find a way to mess it up.
Yeah, you're right. I think they would.
They'd find a way. Like, they'd be like, this was awesome, but then no, I'm done. I'm out. Like, that's, so I think it's simple. People like stories. People like what wrestling is. And it's funny that wrestling, I think, is one of the more impressive performance arts out there. Like, you can get a tremendous actor, but can a tremendous actor do a 60-minute Iron Man match?
No.
Like, and conversely, there's very few actors that could probably go out and win, like, an Oscar for Best Actor. But to be able to combine that and really the grind that comes with it, I mean, people talk about, it's no different than a rock band touring. No, it's a lot easier to tour as a rock band than it is as a pro wrestler. Like, that rock band is flying, they're in tour buses, you're hopping into your rental car, the third Buick Regal you've had this week, and you've been flying who knows where you are. It's 11 o'clock and I got to drive 200 miles.
Yeah.
Next place. And then still go out and perform. Like, that's not easy.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where, I mean, the problem is that we don't have, you look at guys like The Rock and Austin and people like that, even though they didn't come up through the territories per se, they understood that dynamic.
Yeah.
They were influenced by it. Today, we have an entire generation of wrestlers, some that weren't even born yet when Hogan did this, that don't fully understand that dynamic. They're only seeing the Attitude Era and what's followed as what wrestling is.
Yeah.
They don't see enough of what wrestling was. And the problem is, what wrestling was is what got over. Not what it is today.
Right. No, yeah, you're right. Yeah, there are so many people who weren't even around who are in wrestling now when this happened.
I mean, I'll give you a good example. I've talked about it before. Last pro wrestling show I saw was a WWE house show up here in Hershey. And my buddy and I, we're feeling pretty good. And after a while, we're just like making really hilarious wrestling references. Like, somebody bring out Kamala. Like, we're calling out all these old school names. And like, when Charlotte Flair did a Flair flop at a house show, I popped.
Yeah.
And my buddy was like, oh my God, she just did the Flair flop. I was like, it's awesome. It's almost as good as watching Ric Flair do it. The little kid in front of me said, "Who's Ric Flair?" Now, I've never been this close to committing violence as a child in my life.
You're like, why has your father not taught you?
I looked at his dad. I'm like, where have you failed this kid? What you need to do right now, you need to leave. You need to go home. You need to fire up the network. And this kid is watching Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling for the rest of his Christmas break. And then he's going to learn who Ric Flair is.
You need to learn who Ric Flair
come back here and watch this.
Yeah.
Like, if that was my kid, I'd be like, we're gone. Done. You just ruined my evening. Like, and it's like, and it really would be like one of those things, I'm not even mad at you. I'm just disappointed. Like, that's what you
Just disappointed.
I'm just disappointed. You know, I thought I raised you better. I thought I did a better job. I have failed as a father. You know, like, but that's the thing. I mean, like, if wrestlers wanted to learn how to get over, you watch the guys that got over.
Yeah.
And you don't listen to people tell you how to get over. You watch people that actually got over. And
somebody one time posted on Facebook, it's like, oh, if you know, one of the wrestlers, like, what match should I watch for something, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, go watch Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
Don't watch him for how he's working. Yeah. Watch him because he's over.
Mm-hmm.
Go watch Hulk Hogan and The Rock from WrestleMania 18 and figure out how to get yourself to the point that you shove somebody out of a collar and elbow tie up and 70,000 people collectively just lose their minds. Mm-hmm. Like, that's where you want to get as a wrestler. Mm-hmm. Don't watch these people that are trying to put themselves into hospital rooms and iron lungs jumping all over the place.
Yeah.
Figure out how to do this stuff like Hogan and everybody was doing, where they're getting 80,000 people to come see them do 3 moves. Mm-hmm. Hey. Because if you can get yourself to that point where you're bigger than life, that's still going to work today.
Hogan and Andre at WrestleMania 3 is a 5-star match in my book.
It should be. Like,
it is not a 5-star technical masterpiece.
No.
The story they were telling, 5 stars.
Hogan gets
exactly what they're supposed to do that night.
Hogan gets beat up. Andre's walking around slow because he doesn't have to, because he's just beating up Hogan, and then Hogan wins, and the crowd just comes unglued.
Yeah. Well, because for once, that was the one person we don't think Hogan can beat.
Yeah.
Because also, you know, we know this. If you're a student of wrestling, you know that Hogan and Andre had met before.
Yeah.
You know, but that's not what you're seeing, is that Hogan always ducked Andre.
Yeah.
Why am I ducking this guy? Because I know I can't beat him.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have him as my friend, so he's not coming after my title. Once again, that's a little nuance that actually is truthful. Like, why didn't Hogan ever go after Andre? Why didn't he ever give Andre a shot?
Yep.
You know? And of course there's Heenan once again inserted in that.
Heenan.
But yeah.
Heenan. Yep.
You know, maybe what we need to realize is, if you want to get over, you need a Heenan.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to be a Bobby Heenan again. And again,
yeah, no, they don't have anybody. There's nobody like that now.
I don't even know. Heyman's maybe the closest thing you got. But see, Heyman doesn't have the comedic chops that Heenan had. Like, I will tell people, Bobby Heenan is one of the greatest stand-up comedians ever.
And the funny thing with Heenan is just the way he does it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem like he's just doing a comedy routine. I mean, he's cutting hard to the bone on these guys.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I heard and even like outside the ring, I heard a story about Heenan. He would he would purposely, if he's on like out and he sees people on vacation, he would go up and be like, "Oh, can I take your picture?" And he would just walk off their camera. Like, that's hilarious to me. Like, how do you, like, just this, all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, what a nice guy." Like, wait, where are you going to my camera, man? Like, you know, that's like, and also his comedic timing was just impeccable. Like, I mean,
yeah.
And that's the thing too, that you get the right announcers, they can get anything over.
Yeah.
And I think Heenan, he could be funny when he needed to be. He could also be serious when he needed to be. I mean, Heenan could cut a serious promo if he needs to.
And that's the thing right there, the NWO thing. He's being serious.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was not saying it in a comedic way when he's like, "I've told you for 15 years.
Yeah,
this guy was bad news."
Mm-hmm. I knew it. I knew it in New York. I knew it here. You know,
I knew it in Minneapolis.
Yeah. And I think that's where it was also a different Heenan. If he was just making jokes, it wouldn't have worked. But it was like, you're actually, whoa, is now Heenan breaking character a little here? Like, that was awesome. And I think, yes, there's no way to keep the idea of kayfabe in the modern sense, because everybody's got social media, we can see into the lives of these wrestlers. Like, but I think there's something that's been lost, that people don't live the gimmicks anymore or protect their gimmicks.
So you can still sort of keep kayfabe. You can, to a point, if you want to. Look at Floyd Mayweather and McGregor when they fought a couple years ago. Maybe they really didn't like each other. Maybe they did, but it doesn't matter, because they were not posting on Instagram going out to the club with each other before this fight that everybody wants to see. No, all you saw was what they put out in public, which was them sniping back and forth at each other at these press conferences.
Well,
same thing when Mayweather did the thing with what's his name, the jabroni off of YouTube a couple of weeks ago. Like,
but I think the difference is with that, you're not having Mayweather come out every week with that character. It's not like he's on TV every week.
Yeah.
So but I think what you would see is, like, Taker's really the last one that kept the gimmick.
Yeah.
Last. And even to the point where I think it was like on Cornette's show, or whose show it was, but they were talking about a kid came to the arena and Undertaker was his favorite wrestler. And Taker was getting ready for a match, but Taker signed an autograph for the kid. It was a Make-A-Wish kid.
Yeah.
And Taker signed it, "Rest in peace."
Well, no, they said he started to sign it like that. And I was like, oh, wait a minute.
You can't do that, but like, even for them, like, you can't have an evil character doing Make-A-Wish stuff.
Yeah.
As it sounds. Now, maybe say, if you're that guy, hey, I'll give X amount under my real name to help out the kids, or something like that.
Yeah.
There's other ways I can do that, but I'm not going to go to the children's hospital.
Yeah.
Because I want the audience to think, if I came to a children's hospital, I'm about to do something really dastardly.
Yeah.
Like, that's
I'm about to try to burn it down.
Yeah. Like, what do you, like, imagine Kane going to a children's hospital. Like, no, you don't want to see Kane hugging the children. What you're expecting is that this psychopath is now, like you said, about to burn down the children's hospital.
Yeah.
Because he's that evil. Like,
yep.
And I think that's where, a lot of performers, I think, don't buy into the idea of, you got to protect your gimmick. And imagine too, for the NWO, if you were having, immediately after that heel turn, Hogan was going to like the Shriners Hospital.
Yeah.
Can't do that. Like, you can't. And I think that's where the problem you run into now is that heels actually can sell merchandise.
Yeah.
Whereas before, you could just be the most dastardly heel ever, because your job is to get that baby face over. Now you can, in some cases, heels can sell as much merchandise as baby faces can.
Yeah.
And so why not, so I think there's a lot of things they could do, that a lot of things that worked in wrestling works. Wrestling fans always love a surprise. Hogan was a heck of a surprise.
Absolutely.
Heel turn. And really the only thing I can think of for Hogan, when you see him walking out, you can always, I always say with Hogan, take whatever he says with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
When you watch him walk out, you can tell he's scared. He's nervous. Like,
oh yeah,
if this doesn't work, what have I just done?
Yeah, that was not normal confident Hulk Hogan.
No, because see, that would have worked better if he came out doing the pointing and the, the whole Hogan entrance,
Yeah.
Do that. Which to me, kind of, watching back, he's sort of telegraphing it a little bit. But hey, it worked flawlessly. So
yeah.
This is literally us finding something to nitpick, which is, it's like saying Michelangelo missed a spot on the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
Really? You're gonna go to that level.
Yeah. But yeah,
I mean, but it is the day the wrestling industry forever changed.
absolutely.
And it stopped being, and it's kind of, we could even maybe argue the influence of the territories died that day.
Yeah.
When old wrestling died and what becomes new wrestling begins. And it's what we're still dealing with today, for better or worse.
Yeah, absolutely we are. Because now nobody really knows what's going on. It's just all weird and all over the place.
Yeah. And I mean, the idea of factions in wrestling is nothing new.
No.
What was the NWO doing that was vastly different than what the Four Horsemen were doing in the late 80s?
Right.
Literally, the Four Horsemen took over the company. They had all the gold.
Yeah.
They ran the show. I mean, you had Flair telling David Crockett, shut your mouth and sign my checks. That's what you're good at.
Yeah.
Like, everybody in the South knew that David Crockett wasn't just an announcer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously you're watching the sign in front, Jim Crockett Promotions.
Yeah.
Okay. It's obviously not a coincidence that the announcer's name is David Crockett. Okay. He's in the office somehow. It doesn't take a genius to know that.
Yeah. And for Flair to say that, you're like, wow, these guys really do run the show, because whoever else could say it to their boss.
Yeah.
I mean, who in any of our lives, who could come with us, go to our boss and say, you know what, shut your mouth and sign my checks, because that's what you're good at.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it.
But at the same time, though,
fired, but you can do it.
But at the same time, though, how many of us are putting as much money in our boss's pockets as Ric Flair was during that point in time?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom Brady could probably say that.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody was being irritating at him, he just holds up his fingers, just shut up and sign the check. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm making you a lot of money. Shut up and just sign the checks, man.
And so I think what's interesting, you took this idea of an overthrow. It's been done before. I mean, you've had heel factions that have run rough on over a territory.
Yep.
I mean, even to the extent of like what the Freebirds did in World Class.
Yeah.
The difference is they never followed it up properly. Eventually, the Von Erichs went over the Freebirds.
Yeah.
Because that's what you had to have.
Yeah.
Never.
Whereas WCW never went over the NWO. Ever.
No, you had these little moments. When you have the moment with Sting, you have the moment with Goldberg, these little moments when Luger won the title, that was great. But those aren't iconic moments where like WCW won the war tonight. Like, I think it would be awesome where it ended and like literally Hogan, Hall, and Nash are off television for almost a year. Like, you beat them that bad, they're gone. We have, and then that gives you, in this kind of aftermath and new guys rising up into this new era, because hey, you've lost some of your talent. They're still there, but they're not on TV. So you got to get guys like Guerrero and Jericho and others over. So then when those guys come back, I would have loved to have watched Jericho and Hall.
Yeah.
If Hall was in a good shape, that'd have been a great match.
Or you do have again, you have to keep it down. You have to keep the number down, but you do have Hogan, Hall, and Nash go away. And then the 3 or 4 guys that are left, now they're the ones that's got to deal with the aftermath. Mm-hmm. That they're the ones getting beat up every week. Like, oh, Hogan's not here. Cool story, bro. You're getting in the ring with these 3 guys.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just going to get it handed to you tonight. And just remember, you got Hogan's phone number. Every one of them punches that they're giving you, those are for Hogan.
Yeah. So then when Hogan comes back, he tries to reform the band, and you're like, dude, where were you last year? I was getting the crap beat out of me.
You're like, bro, I just got beat up, brother.
Yeah, where
for
were
a
you?
year because you decided to go to Venice.
Mm-hmm.
And now, yeah, no.
And what you get is you get a chance to turn a heel baby face that shakes things up. You get an interesting dynamic with Hall and Hogan would have been better matches if there was actually a real story to it.
Yeah.
Imagine, say, Hall was the guy that was left behind, or Nash was left behind, and they're the ones getting beat up all the time.
Yeah.
Open season on these guys. And then they come back like, hey, you ready to reform the band? Let's take back. Whoa, 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 whoa. What do you mean, let's take back over? Where were you?
Where were you?
You know, I've had more baseball bats pummel me than we ever pummeled people with baseball bats.
Yeah.
And that creates an interesting, nuanced story because you don't necessarily have to put Hogan back into the main event. You could have a hot story of him wrestling Nash or wrestling Hall or, you know, any number of things, how you want to do that. That builds that middle period that it's a story that people would watch that's going to get you from the first hour to what you really want people to see in the third hour. You got to have that bridge. And you didn't really have that in WCW. And so, I mean, obviously, we're looking at this also in hindsight. It's easy for us to make all the right booking decisions.
Yeah.
In 2021. But these are some things that these aren't crazy, outlandish ideas. Like this is stuff that's been done before in wrestling.
Of course, nowadays, you'd have had Hall and Nash show up on the same week at the beginning of the show. Hogan would have turned by the end of the hour.
Yep.
And then they would be completely just beaten 2 weeks from now.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have been a barbed wire cage death match, something that nobody would have ever cared about.
And, you know, in that buildup, Hogan's nowhere to be found. You know,
yeah, he's gone.
He's gone. So we never really thought about Hogan as the third man.
Yeah.
Like there were other, I mean, people were speculating it's going to be Sting. Like that was or who will it be? It was somebody we never expected it would be Hogan. So when he finally comes out, it's like, oh my God, now.
Like, whoa, Hulk Hogan's coming back.
Yeah. Hogan's had enough, brother. You know, if you hurt my friends, then you hurt my pride. You know,
yeah.
Like, I got to be a man. I can't let it slide. You know, that's right. Hogan. And here now, he did the unthinkable.
Yeah. So I went and looked. He had been off of TV since April 15th.
Wow.
He did a handicap match against Arn Anderson and Kevin Sullivan, and that would be interesting to see. I'm sure that was a one-sided affair, but yeah, he did that, and then that was it. He was gone.
Yeah,
he was gone for what, May 2.5 months.
Mm-hmm. And it worked. Like if he had still been on Nitro, it wouldn't have worked as well. Because you know, like, why hasn't he interacted before?
Yeah.
Why hasn't he done this? You know, and it makes you wonder. Maybe Hogan, the reason he's doing this because he's actually worried about these guys. Maybe he's scared of them.
Yeah.
Maybe he knows I can't hang with them anymore. You know, so it also adds like an extra layer of like a chicken heel to Hogan.
You know, it would be interesting because I'm looking here and I don't see why he left. I wonder why he left.
You know what? It probably was a movie or some that's probably what it was. He was probably doing some outside project because that usually happened with Hogan.
It did. I'm trying to see if he had anything.
I don't know. Is this still a Thunder in Paradise era?
No.
Okay.
What is Secret Agent Club? When did this come out? That came out in August of 96. I can't foresee them filming that in April and having it produced that quick. So let's see what a Santa with muscles.
There's a classic.
That came out in November. That might be kind of possible.
Mm-hmm.
That would be interesting to see, because obviously that one's not getting quite the coverage on Wikipedia that Avengers is getting, knowing when the filming started and everything. So
Really?
that would be interesting. That one might, he might have been filming that one. Oh, and the funny thing is it looks like it might have gone with his gimmick. The first thing it says, he is a conceited self-made millionaire who sells bodybuilding supplements and equipment that has his picture on them. So that might have even fit the NWO Hogan gimmick.
Yeah.
Coming out. So anyway, yeah, he might, because I don't think in April, I don't know if they would have known Nash and Hall were done. Were they already talking?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, you would think they would had to have been talking a little bit, because they came over pretty fast. But
yeah, I'd have to go back and like research the actual timeline on that. But I mean, it would make sense. You got Hogan going off the air for a couple months.
Yeah,
we're bringing 2 new people in. That would make a lot of sense, because that's going to kind of cover that void of Hogan not being there.
Yeah, because I mean the MSG thing was only like 10 days or something before Hall came out on Nitro. Not that they couldn't put a deal together that quick. We've certainly seen that happen. Rick Rude, Luger.
Too, if it's even like, I wonder what the difference between a contract today for WWE is compared to like what you've seen a contract in 1996. I mean, did you have the 90-day non-compete? Did you have, or when, hey, it runs out, like, because it was still a territory era. The idea is when your contract runs out, you need to be able to go immediately to work somebody else.
You got to go to work.
Like immediately. You can't wait 90 days.
Yeah.
So now you can do that. Like, but I think that would be very interesting. I guess when their deal was up, it was up. Then they were
well, now though, I think when the deal's up, it's up.
Mm-hmm.
They only put the no competes on the guys that asked to get out early.
Yeah.
Because Moxley, Ambrose, he said he didn't have one.
Yeah, that's true.
So his just ran out, and when he was done, he was done.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see like the differences in that situation. But I think if you know that Hogan's going to be off TV for 2.5 months, you got to find something to replace that.
Yeah,
and not just anybody can step into that role.
No, it's got to be something big.
And this is what we get, the NWO.
Yeah, you get the outsiders.
Yeah, and I think that would have been, and I mean, I think it would have been awesome at some point if only Bischoff had just had like the light bulb go off. Imagine an NWO invasion of a WWE show, like what DX did in Norfolk.
Yeah.
I mean, could you have imagined like you had them outside of like, I don't know, an in your house pay-per-view? Just hanging out in the parking lot. How much would that have blurred the lines and have made
set up a merchandise table across the street?
Yeah. No, we don't work for these guys. We don't work for you either. Like, I mean, it would have been brilliant. Now it would have gotten shut down by lawyers like really quickly, but it would have been brilliant. And then you just kind
of, I don't know. Can you can't stop somebody from selling merchandise on the other side of the street from the show.
I mean, I think what ultimately got them in trouble is that they said that they were still working on, they were giving the audience the assumption they were still Diesel and Razor Ramon.
Yeah.
That was kind of the issue. I mean, because really when Scott Hall comes out, that first he cuts a Razor Ramon promo. That's all that is.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where I'm kind of like, you could do that. I think that was where there was a period where Bischoff was very edgy. I mean, giving away results, things like that.
Yeah.
Would have fit. And I think at that moment, that could have been interesting, you know. And then again, it'd been interesting how would have Vince handled that. I always think Vince would say, if they want to come on TV, let's get them on TV.
Oh, I think Vince would open the door.
Vince would have been like, well, come on in. Because
I think Vince would open the door.
Yeah.
Like they want to do what? On my show? Get for free? On Bischoff's dime?
Yeah.
Open the doors.
Yeah. I mean, he would have brought him right out.
100%.
Like, and
he would have interrupted whatever was going on in that ring. You want microphones? You want the ring? Mm-hmm. Get in the ring. Cameras rolling, Hoss.
Immediately
get in there and say whatever you want to say.
If it is live, a live Raw, and Hall and Nash walk back in, how quickly do you think the chasm between the viewers still watching Nitro and the viewers watching WWE would be? You might have like 12 people still watching Nitro.
Yeah, no, everybody would have gone to WWF.
It'd be like, what is going on here? And yeah, I mean, those are those things where in that era, you could have gotten away with that. You can't do it today.
And Nash, he knew that in 98 or 9 when DX came to the, was it the Scope?
Yeah. Yeah.
What they're right here, equidistant from me, the Scope and the Hampton Coliseum. But whichever one it was, Nash knew.
Let them in.
Open the doors, man. Don't keep them out there. Let them in here. Put the camera on.
I mean, really, you couldn't get sued for it because they came onto your private property, onto your program, and you elected them. I mean, the only thing I would have done is I'd say, here is a waiver that you will not sue us for anything that happens to you right now. But that's it. That's the only thing I would have said. We're not signing a contract. I'm going to say you're not going to hold us liable for anything that happens here. Beyond that,
none of our wrestlers are going to come to the ring and interact with you. Nope. They will not be within 50 feet of you at any point in time. But if you want a microphone and you want to stand in my ring, go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Like, and I mean, that would have been, think about what you could have done with that from a storyline. I mean,
well, I don't think there would have been a storyline come out of it. It would have just, you'd have got one night and we'd have just had to figure out what happened.
The legacy of that would have lived on. You could have spun that into something pretty good.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like, you're never going to be able to do that night after night because then it doesn't become special anymore.
Yeah.
But then, like, I don't know. Like, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that territories work together for a reason. I mean, think about how Vince basically subsidized ECW during this time.
Yeah. Because he needed somebody else to leech people.
Here's the cool moment. It's WrestleMania, the main event. Right at the peak, looks like it's about to finish. They're about to go home. The lights drop. They come back in a couple months after this. Holy crap, it's Sting in the ring with a baseball bat. And just like out. And then leaves. Like, and be like, look, WCW, you're gonna be making a ton of money on this. WWE, you're gonna be making a ton of money on this.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been, you could have organized maybe the greatest wrestling event ever.
Yeah.
Did that. There would never be anything that even comes close to that event.
They could have done that in 2001 if they would have just bought the contracts.
Yeah.
I don't care how much it costs. Everybody. We're buying everybody.
There is no reason that Invasion pay-per-view should not have been the highest grossing wrestling pay-per-view ever.
Well, it was one of them.
I mean, I'm saying like I'm saying even pulling in Mania like money. Like, well, I mean, if you would have done that right.
It did. Even as botched as it was, it did.
Yeah. But I mean,
it's one of only a very small handful of WWEF pay-per-views that ever did 1 million buys. And it's the only one not Mania.
And you think about too, I mean, WCW did stuff with New Japan.
Yeah.
You know, there was a precedent for it. Now, nobody ever did it at that scale.
Right.
Look at what we see now, kind of like AEW and Impact. Like it's being done at a much smaller scale, but can you imagine if just Vince and Bischoff said for one moment, we're going to make a bunch of money here.
The two biggest companies in the world.
We're going to do the greatest super show ever. And we're going to put it in the biggest arena we can find.
Although you gotta think, how do you get out of it? Getting to it is easy. Yeah. And even the blow off wouldn't be hard. You can make a lot of money doing that. The problem is going to be the actual night. In fact, that might be the whole thing that just stops it all from happening.
Well, the problem is you're going to have some people that are going to have to do some business.
Yeah, well, and
players that would not want to do business right now.
No, I think the two people that wouldn't want to do business that would make the most difference in the whole thing is Vince McMahon and Bischoff.
Mm-hmm.
Vince surely is not going to want any of his people to lose.
Right.
And I can't see Bischoff wanting any of his people to lose either.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when you go back and look through time, you would have these matches where Bob Backlund, the WWF champion, wrestles Harley Race.
Mm-hmm.
And they go to some sort of a double DQ, or there's obviously never a finish there. Neither one of those guys is losing pinfalls in the middle of the ring.
Mm-hmm.
It would be like, okay, Backlund loses one, Race loses one, and then maybe if you want Harley to win the match, Backlund clotheslines him over the top rope or something.
Right.
And then you can say, oh my gosh, Backlund, he doesn't know the rules, this, that, and the other. And so now he's disqualified. He's thinking nothing's going on or whatever. But so, obviously Hulk Hogan is not going to want to lose any match to anybody at that point in time.
You would have had to have had Vince and Bischoff sit down and say, okay, you get three guys on your roster that will be protected at this event. Everybody else is going to have to do business. And you can book it to protect those guys in certain ways. Now, the problem is that means you don't get Austin versus Hogan.
Or probably Austin versus Goldberg if you're doing it at that point in time.
Yeah, but see, you could even have,
you're not getting Undertaker and Sting.
No, but you could have, I think it would have been interesting. I think there's one of those great what ifs in wrestling history. What if they let him in? What if you let DX inside the building?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that could very well have been maybe another one of those seismic shifts in the wrestling business had that happened.
That would be a good question to send into Cornette's show, because I'm sure he was still there. And I know he wasn't on the creative at that point. Mm-hmm. What was the plan if Bischoff opened the door?
Yeah.
Because again, Vince did not send them there without having thought of that.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't just say, oh yeah, sure, go in there, go on their TV. Yeah, sure. Let me lose literally every viewer I have this week because they're going to turn over to WCW to see you on their show, not mine.
Or even when DX went into the Turner offices in Atlanta. I mean, they were in the food court of the Turner office building. And if I was Bischoff, I'd have been send them up to my office right now. They got a camera? Great. If not, we'll get a camera here.
We'll get a camera here right now.
They're in my office, and I'll be the swarmy heel that you hate, and I'll say, man, you guys couldn't hack it here. How's it in the minor leagues?
Yeah.
Hey, Triple H, remember where you were terrorizing here? We had no use for you. You left because you knew you couldn't hack it here.
And I'm sure Road Dogg was,
yeah. I would say,
somebody doing jobs in WCW.
I would be like, you know what? You're an Armstrong. You know what? You're not even good as your brother Brad. And he can't even crack the mid card on my show.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you start cutting that, it's like, whoa, you know?
Yeah.
That's, hey, let them. I mean, that's my thing.
Yeah.
I think, and I think in that era, you could have gotten away with that. I think today, there's no way you're going to let a corporate environment like that, like Turner at the time, would never have allowed that to happen today.
No.
Now, had it happened on Raw, Vince has a lot more control over that show than Bischoff did.
Oh, Vince has 100%
structure to have to talk to.
No,
I mean,
not then.
Say is going to be mad when everybody turns over to Raw.
No, when they double their ratings.
Yeah, you're welcome. You know.
Yeah, thanks.
Or I'd be like, hey, we just doubled our ratings. Let's renegotiate our deal.
Yeah.
You know. So I think that's where it would always. I think I've often wondered if the roles were reversed and it was Bischoff sending his guys over to WWE, how would that have been different? How would it have been handled differently?
Right.
You know, Vince is one of those guys that, yeah, he can hold a grudge, but Vince can forget a grudge for money. As long as the money
can.
You know.
And you know, you bring up something else with the ratings. This era of wrestling is what really brought the money for these TV deals.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't know if WCW proper was getting any money out of their TV deal. I think it was just sort of an umbrella type deal that, well, we're all owned by the same people, so we'll just put it on the program. We'll just put it on the TV. But you know, we've heard that WWF during this time period was not getting huge money
right
from USA, that still here the money makers were the house shows and the pay-per-views.
Right.
Whereas now they don't care. And I guess, you know, they don't care what the ratings are. They're getting their $1 billion from Fox and their $1 billion from NBC Peacock one way or another. Whereas here, like, it mattered because they needed to get the next rating. They needed to get the next contract.
Well, and I think that's where, you know, the fact they're getting these huge deals today are built on what they did in the 1990s.
Yeah, absolutely. It surely can't be on what they're doing now.
WWE is a publicly traded company right now because they won the Monday Night War.
Yep, absolutely.
I mean, so hey, you want to look at why wrestling's the way it is today? It's the outcome of this in the 1990s.
Yep.
It's almost like the World War I of wrestling. It explains everything else for the 20th century.
Yeah,
that's what this was, you know. And you know, it's an interesting dynamic. I think it's I think one that people fondly remember, and wrestling frankly always lives off nostalgia.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always been that way, you know. Even after Bruno hung it up, you're going to Pittsburgh or you're going in the Garden, guess what? Bruno Sammartino comes out and waves
He's
the
a
crowd.
referee or anything.
Yeah, place goes nuts, you know. Like, and so I think they've always known how to capitalize on that. And you know, on paper, WWE should not be drawing what they do for their TV deals, not with what they're pulling in, not with their position in the war. In many ways, WWE is bigger than they were in the 90s, but they're not as relevant as they were in the 90s.
Yeah, for sure.
And
for sure,
you know, but then again, if you're Vince, is it relevance or is it that bottom line paycheck you're getting every day?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm happy to be irrelevant making a couple billion a year.
Yeah.
I'm cool doing that.
Yeah.
You know? I'd much rather do that than be relevant and not making any money.
Although we just see the top line money. For the network, I wonder, because for Fox, it's $1 billion over 5 years. So that's 200 million a year. And they do 52 weeks of programming. So I'm not great at math, but that's less than $4 million a week that they're paying for 2 hours of television. So even though the end number is this massive number, for the network, that may not be that much, because I can't foresee them producing 2 hours worth of sitcoms for $4 million.
Not when you got to pay everybody on the show and everybody working on the show.
Yeah. I can't. So yeah, even though it is $1 billion and it sounds like a crazy amount of money, and it is a crazy amount of money, for the actual network, that may actually be a bargain for 5 years.
Well, wrestling has always been a bargain for television. I mean, it's relatively cheap to produce, and it fills time, and advertisers go to it. So it's a natural fit. But I think, the idea that number was even floated out there over 5 years.
Yeah.
What if it was, this doesn't happen, maybe it's 5 years and it's only $500 million. I mean, you can do things like that, though. Maybe, yeah, it's a crazy number, but it's not as big as what you're getting, because Vince look at what we did, and he can also sell the potentially could be back here again. Do you not want to be the network that didn't have wrestling in 1999?
Yeah.
Do you want to risk that? And it's a different dynamic business wise with wrestling than what it used to be. But frankly, Vince has his genius moniker because of what he did in the 1990s. Even forgetting what he did with WrestleMania and some of these other things,
yeah,
Vince earns his genius title from the Monday Night Wars and coming out on top.
Right.
Why is Eric Bischoff still a relevant voice in pro wrestling? Because he almost did the unthinkable.
The NWO. Yeah.
I mean, and how many guys from this era do millions of people listen to on podcasts every week to listen back about this? I would bet more people listen to wrestling podcasts talking about the history of wrestling, things that have already happened, than are actually watching the current product.
I don't think I don't even know if that's a real.
And
question.
Podcast, I mean, trying to get ratings for podcasts is incredibly hard. But I mean, there's probably more people that listen to like Arn Anderson talk about what he did in the 1980s than might watch NXT.
Yeah.
Like, what does it say when people would rather listen to a guy that's in his 60s talk about what happened in the 1980s?
Yeah.
Than watch what's going on right now?
Well, Cornette did the numbers a while back, and his weekly listens on YouTube and the podcasts are almost what AEW's doing.
Yeah.
So, that's crazy,
And I think that's where, with this new environment, it's actually a lot easier for wrestlers to get themselves over if they want to.
Yeah.
They have so many different avenues to do it. And I mean, if I start a wrestling company, anybody I brought in, first question is, how would you get yourself over?
Yeah.
Or how would you help me get this guy over or this girl over? How would you do that?
Yeah.
If you can answer those questions, I've got a place for you.
Yeah.
This is what I want. I want you here. Like, it's not how am I going to make you the biggest star ever, because there's any number of ways to be over.
Yeah.
The Brooklyn Brawler was over in the role he needed to be.
Yeah.
Jobber. George South was over in the role he needed to be as a jobber.
Yep.
I think people sometimes confuse going over and being over with being the top draw or the top star.
Yeah.
The very best. If you're going to be a jobber, be the very best jobber you can be.
Make the guy you're in the ring with look good.
Because if you do that, you will always have a job.
Yep.
You know, because hey, everybody needs good hands.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, and there's a lot of guys that made a lot of money in the wrestling business. Maybe they didn't make the big money, but man, they were constantly employed for 20 years and never had to worry about a check. You know, how am I getting paid this week? Because they would basically count themselves out. And hey, nothing wrong with that. You know, no different than a character actor. I always play the creepy guy. You know, they're never going to make that guy the leading man in the role, but they will make you the creepy sidekick. And you know what? You'll get paid for that.
Get paid well.
You know, and so I think that's the difference, that they're not asking them. I think a lot of wrestlers now are asking, as a company, how will you get me over? That's not the right question.
Yeah, no, I don't know how I'm going to get you over. How are you going to get you over?
Yeah, it's not my job to get you over. I'm giving you an opportunity to get yourself over.
But you know, I think that's where we've gone with all the guaranteed deals and the script writers and everything. Mm-hmm. That's the point we're at.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard often, you know, in the old days, Vince would never promise money. He would never give guaranteed contract. He basically said, I'm giving you an opportunity. If you do what you're supposed to do with the team that we have, we're probably going to make some money here.
Yep.
If you don't do it, we don't make money. And so I think that's where we've lost that sense of, you know, as a wrestler, you don't have a sense of who you are, what you want to be. You just get put into whatever organization you're in. There's no creative control. There's no personal investment in the character. And you're never going to get that over.
No.
And, you know, I think that's where we could see, I think, a big change in, you know, what did the Attitude Era show us? It was two companies trying to do everything they could to get over.
Yeah.
Whatever it took. I mean, really, no idea was too stupid. They would try almost anything to get over.
Yeah. And they did.
Can you imagine being a performer in that environment that you can just, whatever you want to do today, they're going to let you try?
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome.
Anything short of just taking your whole pants off in the ring. They came pretty close to doing that too.
Dang it, if Shawn Michaels didn't do that practically.
Yeah, you know? It's true.
You know, or poor Val Venus.
Yeah, he did.
You know, that's
when they brought him in there and he was strung up and the guy standing there with a samurai sword.
Once again, there's crap in the Attitude Era, kids.
Yes, there is.
But
in the next week, they brought out John Bobbitt.
Exactly.
It's like, whoa.
Like, whatever it takes to pop a rating. Like, but I think that's the thing, that you don't have performers thinking in those terms. And if they did, I think the wrestling business would be a lot better.
Yeah.
And I think there's also, you look at, I mean, a lot, I would say, you know, probably the vast majority of those making a career in wrestling today grew up as wrestling fans.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously there's always those weird, like, I was a bodybuilder, I was a football player, I was, you know, whatever. And I kind of fell into this and learned to love it.
Yeah.
You know, almost like a Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
I mean, Kurt Angle wasn't a student of pro wrestling.
Right.
But he learned to love it. And he also had skill sets that worked perfectly for that. But I think, you know, it's more than just being a fan. I think if you want to be a successful pro wrestler today, you almost have to be a student of the industry and a student of the history of wrestling.
Yeah.
And knowing
to know how you're going with it. Yeah.
And if you can do that, you can combine that, you're going to be successful, I think. And frankly, if you have that too, you should have a job in all creative in any form of wrestling there is. Like,
yeah.
you know, I would love to go into a creative meeting outside the big players. If you just get me like the standard AEW writers, the standard WWE writers, and we just ask them like wrestling trivia, how god awful would that be? Like,
AEW has alleged that they don't have writers.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that one bit. Like,
I don't know. You don't think some of those dudes are coming up with their own silly nonsense?
no, it's well, maybe. I mean, there is a lot of that. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of crap.
Because I think that's just what you see on AEW is that you have a lot of guys there who it's not that they're not there because WWE is doing stupid, goofy stuff and they're there wanting to do something serious. It's that they don't want to do the stupid, goofy stuff that WWE is doing. They want to do their own stupid, goofy stuff.
Right.
Which makes me feel bad for somebody like Griff Garrison, who I've met half a dozen times in Greensboro, who I know wants to be serious and I know he wants to do this right, but he's got the circus going on around him, and it's just like, I'm just like, well, at least I'm glad he's getting a paycheck.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's the best wrestlers are the ones that you basically take their personality and you just crank it up.
Yeah.
And because there's a believability and you're not playing a role, you're just playing yourself in a situation.
Yeah.
And that's a lot easier. I mean, the easiest role anybody can ever play is themselves. And I think, there's still a place for comedy in wrestling. There's still a place for seriousness. Like, when wrestling's at its best, it's like the greatest food buffet ever. Like, whatever you want, we got it out here on the spread. Maybe you don't like steak, but you like tacos. You know what? We got the best tacos out here.
Yeah.
You don't like steak, you like shrimp. Hey, we got some awesome shrimp here too. That's wrestling at its best. You get that combination. And frankly, you could get the bookers of the past who would run circles over the companies today.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah, they would.
I
mean, if the wrestlers didn't get the human resources departments involved.
Well, there's that too. But I think it's yeah, I mean, like you said, there's ways to do. Very rarely is there any new ideas in wrestling.
No.
Like, it's pretty much all been done.
Yeah. But the NWO, that was just Bischoff saw something in Japan and said, hey, let's bring it over here.
Yeah. No, he didn't do an exact replica of that. He's like, this idea works there. Hey, it works here. You got to make it work for your territory and your company. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time there were invasions of wrestling. Like, I mean, how many times were there outlaw promotions that would bring their guys to ringside just to start crap? Like, I mean, that's nothing new. Like, I mean, if you're an outlaw, I mean, for gosh sakes, Angelo Poffo did that in Memphis.
Yep.
I mean, that's,
he did.
We basically, one of the most famous wrestlers of all time, Randy Savage, really started in an outlaw promotion. Like,
yeah,
very rarely does that work out, but that's, so it's always been there. It's just they don't. You just you retune it, recalibrate. And then again, a lot of movies, it's the same plot. We're just switching things up.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where, if you do that and you have believable performers that people can get invested in, like, there's not wrestlers that people are getting invested in today.
No.
Like, you feel like you're part of the product. The closest really was Daniel Bryan and Kofi.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, at Mania 30, when Bryan goes over and wins the title, that was as much a win for the fans as it was Daniel Bryan.
Yep. And that was huge.
Yeah.
And again, same thing with Kofi. I think that would have been 34?
Yeah. And we felt everybody was invested in this. We felt like when Kofi won, we all won that night.
Yeah.
And that's when wrestling's at its best. When you can get the crowd in your hand like that.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and back the money truck up.
Yeah.
And while you're at it, start printing some money because we're gonna need more.
Yeah.
And that's, it's not rocket science, but it is. Wrestling's one of those, why does Stone Cold get over the way he does? Because it's the beer drinking redneck finally telling his boss to go shove it.
Yeah.
Which everybody wanted to do in that era. I mean, how many kids wanted to tell their teachers to go shove
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
How many kids want to give their teacher a stunner? Or their coaches a stunner?
Yeah.
It was perfect. It was something that was relatable. Everybody can understand that. And because it's not, you don't maybe understand the exact situation, but you understand the emotions behind it.
Yeah.
And that's how wrestling works. And a lot of times I'm always want a less is more approach in wrestling than trying to be always over the top. And, I watch, I go back and watch like 1986 stuff in NWA. And yeah, it's basically studio wrestling. And it worked.
Yep.
Like the matches told a story, the promos told a story. Like you give me a random show from 1986 from the NWA, and I've got basically a better wrestling show than anything that's going to be put on the air right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
In-ring work, storytelling, like an emotional investment. Like, I don't know. I just think that's kind of once again, there was nothing special about that arena. Really, that sound stage they're recording on.
Yeah.
The talent got it over. And you do that by putting your talent in a position to succeed. And when's the last time WWE has put a major talent in a position to actually succeed?
Oh, John Cena.
Yeah, that's the closest. And even then, when Cena is starting to phase out, we got to get the new Cena. So what do? We push Roman Reigns down your throat. And the fans didn't want that.
No.
Like, that's where you almost have to say, we'll let the fans decide who our next guy is going to be.
Yeah.
You really should have had, of course, he had issues of injuries and other things, but after 30, they should have leaned in on Daniel Bryan as long as they could.
Well, they did.
And
he was gone. He was gone like 2 months later.
Yeah, you can't predict injuries.
Yeah.
But for God's sakes, Austin broke his neck. And they found a way to still make him relevant.
Yeah.
He can't wrestle, okay? He can talk, right? You know what I mean? Imagine that element of Daniel Bryan's just reached the mountaintop. He has achieved his goal, and now it's cruelly taken away from him, this really nice guy. It can either lead to a very embittered, compelling heel, or it creates a really great comeback story.
Yeah.
To see if he can get back to it. And either way, you've got wonderful booking there. And they don't think of it in those terms.
No, they don't. Not anymore.
And I think a lot of that's because they've also gone away from long-term booking.
Yeah.
The old days, Vince knew what the next WrestleMania is probably going to look like.
Yeah.
Within reason. Or the very least, he knew what SummerSlam was going to look like.
Yeah.
And then after SummerSlam, you pretty much know what Mania is going to look like.
Yeah.
And
unless somebody gets hurt.
Yeah, I know, because that happens, but Magnum TA gets in a car wreck. How do you work around something like that in 86? God, it's about to be your next big thing.
Yeah.
Well, done now. That happens. But I think that long-term planning allows you to develop a story. It allows you to build it. And I think that's what people like. I think that's why things like podcasts and longer form entertainment is getting over.
Yeah.
People like the build. They don't just want the instant gratification. It's fun seeing how we get there. The journey is as important as the destination.
Yeah.
So, and this, I mean, as we said, it all goes back to the 90s here.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And as we said, the NWO lacked the destination.
yes, it did.
They never got to the destination, and that is probably as good a stopping point as we can find.
Absolutely.
Destination.
Well, I mean, I was thinking we go 2 more minutes, win this thing at 3:16.
Oh,
so I think we should probably just kill 2 more minutes.
Can we do 2 minutes? I think we can do 2 minutes.
You know, I was thinking it would just be, you know, since we're talking about that, let's end it at 3:16.
I know. Yeah.
And then we say the tape machines are rolling. We'll see you next week, fans.
Yeah, tape machines are rolling.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got a point there.
And I think too, another point is for anybody that's coming into the business, learn the right lessons of this era. Like, there's a tendency, because it was successful, you can look at a successful event and learn all the wrong lessons from the success.
Yeah.
Learn the real good lessons of this era and why these guys got over.
And you don't have to hot shot everything every week.
No, you don't.
To just go crazy. And maybe that's what they did wrong during the time, was that they just tried to one up themselves every single week. And eventually you run out and you can't do that anymore.
And also, once you start running out storyline wise, you got to do stuff physically.
Yeah.
And some of those bumps that guys started taking in the 90s, unfortunately, I don't know if that's the right lesson. We'll talk about those bad lessons.
Yeah.
Now, high spots are great, but when you see it every week, you're putting your body through a lot of damage for something that has minimal
Jeff
impact.
Hardy getting speared off the ladder, or hanging off the belts.
Now, you do that, how many indie ladder match shows will somebody try to recreate that spot?
Yeah, it's silly.
And the thing is, you do that wrong and you basically crack your collarbone or you snap your neck. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Now what are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
I think that's where, in places, it's important. I mean, the big spots are always great, but, you know, don't do high spots in a bingo hall.
No.
Like, the roof's not that high. So just keep that in mind.
The roof's not that high. And with that, 316.
There we go. That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. We'll see you guys next time.